listen, son. Knock you in your head with my stick, with my stick. You gon' have a mark from my stick, from my stick. My stick, my stick, my stick is better than bacon. You can't touch my stick. I don't wanna. Yeah, you want my stick. Dunk your coconut with my stick. Look at my stick. You gon' feel the wrath of my stick. Fear my stick, my stick, my stick. My stick is better than bacon. You can't touch my stick, but it's just a stick. It's my perfect stick. My stick is my friend, born from a log. Everyone can see it's better than bacon. Why'd you get so crotchety and mean? Look at my stick. Why'd you drink that creature's milk is green? Got me sick. My stick, my stick, my stick is better than bacon. You can't use my stick, but it's just a stick. Don't you like my stick? No, it's just a stick. It's my perfect stick. My stick and me take walks every day. Past the hooligans down by the ocean. When they laugh at my stick, then they learn how my stick is much denser than bacon. Caught a little piggy and I let the little piggy run amok. But when I was asleep, little piggy kept waking me up. People often fight about which birds are the best birds, but everybody can agree that seagulls are the worst. I kiss my stick, you can't pick up my stick, keep your mitts off my stick. I disappear for years, then reappear right here to cheer about my cool stick. When I was a little bitty kid, I had not yet found my mighty stick. Then I did, I could break your stick using just my brain. My stick? I could make you wish you couldn't feel pain. Not my stick, my stick, my stick, my stick is better than bacon. You can't touch my stick. I don't want your stick. Yeah, you want my stick. It's just a stick. It's my big boy stick. Bought a bag of rhythm and I wish I really, really, really didn't. Nobody has a good reason to own a bag of venom. Oh, come on, there's sometimes 'cause I like how it hurts. Everybody can agree that seagulls are the worst. I kiss my stick, it's my stick. You can't pick up my stick. Keep your mitts off my stick. Everyone can see it's better than bacon. It's my stick, it's my stick, it's my finger. My stick, keep your mitts off my stick. Everyone can see it's better than bacon.
Do not wear that outfit again. Check. But if you wanna keep it clean, because I want to fit in. Sorry, you're just not terribly important to me. Did you know that Whitney Houston's debut LP had 4 #1 singles on? Did you know that Christy, there are no girls with good personalities? I don't think we should see each other anymore. It never was supposed to be. Gotta return some videotapes. Have to return some videotapes. Did you know I'm utterly insane? I like to dissect girls that ate some of their brains. Gotta return some videotapes. I'm really late. Gotta return some videotapes. I guess I was probably returning videotapes. Gotta return some videotapes. I guess I was probably returning videotapes.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another Appreciating Comic Book Art Live. Yeah, messed it up right off the bat. I like it. Like,
right off the bat.
I'm gonna say, just everybody bear with me. I'm feeling a little under the weather tonight, so I'm gonna try not to sniff all over this mic if I can help it. But if I do, I truly apologize. It's that time of the year. Yeah, and it's not doing good. Kayla, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm exhausted. Work's been insane. And I'm happy to be here as usual, especially with our guest tonight. I'm so excited to talk about this and just look through it, just because this was one of the big crossover events in the 90s that occurred. So it was between Image and Valiant, and they brought all the big guns out for this project. So I'm excited to look through it. I haven't seen the book in a while. So I know, there's several of them. So they were all named after colors.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I was never even actually a fan of Valiant, to be honest with you. But anything Image did, I was very excited to read and collect, or look at and collect. And I remember that the Deathmate Black and the Deathmate Red were my two favorite, and that was the Wildstorm and Extreme Studio books that they did. Everything else was all right, but specifically this was great. When I saw Sal post something about it the other day, I was planning on doing something completely different on the show, but I saw that and I was like, oh man, I was like, we should get him on and talk about it, because that'd be awesome. And fortunately he had the time, so here we are. We're going to do it. We're going to dive into the Deathmate Black Wildstorm book a little bit. We're going to talk a little bit about the Wildstorm, or the Deathmate Tour. Plus, Sal's got a bunch of stuff like he did last time to show us art-wise and some behind-the-scenes things. So this is going to be a hell of a fun show, like it always is. But tonight is going to be an absolute blast. Before we get going, I'm sorry.
Don't die on me tonight.
I'm going to try not to. So, I apologize, everybody. I'll try to mute when I have to cough. That one kind of just snuck up on me. We got Neff in the house. Hail. We got member of the channel Astro Zombie says, hello, chat. Hello to you. We got Sooner GM. Hi, CG. Hi to you. Hi to you.
Hello.
We got Steve Lachowski. There you go.
Polish last name.
Oh, okay. That's yeah. Good. Hail, Steve. Good to see you. Good to see you guys. Insaniacs Draws. Hell yeah. Good to see you, man. Yes. It's been a second. Baz in the house as well. McShort. Oh, I got a ton of you guys. Another member of the channel, Tarks9 in as well. Got Hail the Lore, which I do believe was he the first?
Yeah, he was the first.
Hail the Lore was the first. First in the chat when I posted this. So number one tonight. We got Paulus in the house as well. Looking good. All right, we got Marco Sharpo, the Mark Sanga.
Yeah,
I like that. I don't know if I've seen that name. That's cool. I like that.
Hail
to you. Hail to you. Thank you for being here. To anybody that's new, please hit the like, subscribe, hit the bell for notifications. We really appreciate it. And everybody in the chat, make sure you hit the like button and give us a comment after the show. Let us know how you appreciate the show. If you like it, if you don't like it, engagement is always good. We got Jeremy Burt's in the house. Hail to you, brother. Good to see you. We got Rand Nada. Oh man, awesome. We got a ton of people. Chimera's in the house. Chimera's gonna be on this channel. I want to say in a few weeks. I think I gotta look at my schedule, but it's gonna be. I'm looking forward to talking to him. Got Edwin in the house as well. Jay Ryan, Rick Sala, the man, the myth, the legend himself. Rick Sala. Like it. Let me see. Let me get down here. I think I got to. Did I get to everybody? Oh, here's another name I don't think I've seen.
That's my best friend.
Oh,
she's
really?
all the way out in Texas right now. Hi, Crystal. Thank you for stopping by. I miss you.
Hello. Thank you for joining us. Yeah, I appreciate it. Subscribe to the channel. Hit the like button. While you're here. We have LT Hughes. Or Hughes? I think. I'm horrible at spelling, guys. Just say that.
LT Hughes.
Hail. Got Jay Lee in the house. Hail, brother. Good to see you as always. Shadowhawk Talks in the house as well. Says, hail, Joe. Hello, Kayla.
Hello.
Here's another name I don't think I've seen.
Does that say Kanto Hair?
Kanto Hair, yes.
I'm going to say it. I don't care. And look, I said the word, and now the sex bots have appeared.
All right. Mod the sex bots. Mod them up. Sex bots, and I agree. Those are top notch. Absolutely. Absolutely. We got Jeremy Rasco in the house. Hail, brother. Good to see you, man. It's been a second. Corey Barton. What is going on? Good to see you guys.
What is going on, Corey?
Coleman.
Coleman.
Good. All right, we gotta get through the chat here. Let's see. Get down here. Oh, there's the sex bots. I think somebody timed them out. We got Comics Art Pro Secrets. Hail.
Hail.
Hello, let's go. Oh,
yeah, let's go. Let's do it.
Let's do it. All right, sex box are taken care of. No time to mod them up. Maybe later. We're going to get rolling into this. So the guest we have on, last time we had him on the show, it was a very, very fun show. He did an ink tutorial showing some of the Brett Booth original pencils, so how he embellished them and how he rendered them, which as an art geek, I really get into that kind of stuff. I'm a big fan of line work. So getting to see the behind the scenes stuff is so cool. And just a really awesome dude here to talk about the Wildstorm Deathmate Tour and some other cool stuff. We're going to welcome to the show Sal Regla. Welcome, brother. How you doing, man? It's good to see you again.
Hello, everybody. How are you guys?
Doing good, man. I'm trying to get through the intro here, trying to not die in everybody. So I'm gonna mute for a second.
He's coughing. Probably
just trying to get some, dealing with a little bit under the weather. So yeah, I don't want to be too much of a distraction. So I might mute every once in a while, but Kayla is here. She can carry the show, as we know that she's done before. Got Jimmy Reyes in the house. Hail, Jimmy. Good to see you.
Hail, Jimmy.
Oh, yeah. So Sal,
Jimmy. Yes,
this whole thing started because you posted, tagged Brett Booth in a post about the Deathmate Black, and you talked about the Wildstorm Deathmate tour that you guys did back in the 90s. If people don't know what Deathmate was, that was a crossover between Image and Valiant, which I said earlier, I was never really a big fan of Valiant, to be honest with you. I know there are a lot of people, even in this chat, that were a fan of Valiant, but for some reason, I just never got into them. But Image, man. Image was king. Image was absolute king in my life, and all the names attached to it were my idols. And Deathmate Black, when that came out, that book was just, I don't think I read it. I just looked at it a lot. Everybody knows I don't read. But the art was amazing. I want to dive into the book a little bit and just see if you have any kind of memories that you want to talk about as well. But before we get rolling, what was that about that book that you saw that you wanted to tag Brett in?
Yeah.
Well, for me, I just remember how exciting that time it was for me in comics. I just broken into the industry, and here's this book that has, it's a collaboration between some of the best artists in the business, the Image guys, and specifically the Homage Studio guys, and then other artists that would be, of the caliber of Brett that would go out and transcend and, carve their own way in the industry. So I hadn't seen that cover in a long time. The fan brought it up to me. He brought a stack of about 45 books to sign.
Oh, wow.
So it was just, all those memories ran through my mind. And that's why I wanted to tag Brett with it and see, what his thoughts were on it.
No, I'm glad you did, because it's one of those things that it touched the nostalgia button for me, because that was one of the important crossovers, I guess, in the 90s. Even though critically acclaimed, I don't know how well it did. I know there were some shipping issues and whatnot, but it was really cool to see those two companies, the smaller independent companies. Like Image was, just this massive thing, even though it was small compared to the original or the main two at the time. But Valiant was another company that was kind of coming up, and that crossover seemed to hit at the right time. And there were some fun characters, and the story was, from what I remember, kind of, pretty cool. But the art was amazing from the Image books. I'll say that specifically. Sorry, guys, I don't want to bash the Valiant books, but the Image books art was absolutely amazing. This convention you were at, what was that?
It was LA Comic Con this past weekend ran Friday through Sunday. It was probably the first time I've been at a con and sat down to sign autographs over the last 15 years. So as you can imagine, it was a little bit overwhelming to begin with. But then
I bet
I saw some familiar faces and people that made me feel at home right away. So it was a blast.
You said 15 years since you last worked at Comic-Con?
Yes, since the last time that I went to any convention to sit down and sign autographs, because I did go to Comic-Con in San Diego, I was in a panel for Artist Elite, and just pretty much wandered the halls aimlessly because there was so much to take in for me after all those years, you know.
Yeah, cons have
I'm old
changed so
enough to-
much.
Oh yeah,
in
I'm
15
old
years.
enough to remember the small operation that it was in, you know, in the early to mid 90s to this, you know, humongous extravaganza that's become.
Yeah, they've changed even like since I first started working Comic Cons. I started first working Comic Cons in 2014, 2015, and they've changed drastically since then. So I can't imagine like going in there in that, like, you know, with that length of time of not working a con. In a way,
Yeah.
I probably would have been shell shocked because I saw the change happen gradually. So, and the comic conventions have changed a lot, the big name ones, because they're not as, you know, comic focused, I feel. So,
Absolutely. But it was a really good time for me to, you know, catch up and see old familiar faces. A lot of people came by to ask me about my process because they were curious about it, pros and, you know, people that are trying to break into the business in particular. That part was really rewarding. If
I
you
bet.
can help anybody, you know, because it's really difficult whenever you're starting a new endeavor, especially, you know, going through what brushes am I going to use, what are the technical aspects of it, which program am I going to use. If we have some time, I'll probably devote a couple of minutes to that so that, you know,
Yeah.
whoever's out there can just, you know, so you don't have to jump through hoops and do all that kind of stuff. So please remind me towards the end if you will.
Yeah,
I'll
absolutely.
remind
Absolutely.
you.
Before we go forward, we got Passmaster Dan in the chat as well as the Art Jedi and Don Edwards. Good to see you guys. Bordeaux as well has jumped in. I know we got a lot to talk about on this show, so I'm gonna try to get things going so we can kind of get into the meat of it all. But I did want to bring up the Deathmate Black and kind of flip through this a little bit. Usually, guys, when we do this on our channel, we do a little bit more in depth into talking about the pages and talking about the art and everything. But since we have Sal in here, I'm just gonna play this in the background as we kind of talk about
Oh,
this.
please do. I'd love to see that. I'd love to get in
Yeah,
there.
yeah.
That would be
And
awesome.
it's cool to have you on here because I would love, you know, I'm sure that you were there when this book was being made. So I'm sure you saw a lot of the pages from all the artists because it's, you know, there's quite a bit of artists and quite a bit of inkers on this book that came to be. And again, this was one of my favorite books when I was a kid because I think it collected some of my favorite artists at the time. Like, you know, obviously, I was big into Sylvester, big into Jim Lee. I was getting really big into Brett Booth at the time. Seeing his name on there was cool. Scott Clark being in there, rest in peace, is awesome to see his work as well. And obviously, the inking talent that they had on this book was great. And I believe Joe Chido does the colors as well. So I mean, just all around, this really kind of was right on my alley as far as comics go. Like, to me, this is comics, right? This is absolutely comic books. I say it all the time on this channel. I mean, there was never as fun of a time in comics like there were in the 90s, late 80s, early 90s, mid 90s when fantastic art was going on like this. And looking at this book, I actually hadn't looked at this for a while. So thanks, Sal, for posting this and make me think about it, because I looked through it for the first time today in years, and I was like, oh man, I forgot how fun just the art in this book was. I kind of hung here a little bit on the story because I couldn't remember what it was about.
Yeah, I think
so
it was
the
like
story. It was about like a chance meeting between Void from Wildcats and Solar from Valiant. That's what it was about. That's what the whole plot evolved around. And
That's all I remember.
How the two became lovers, but if they, you know, with them
just
being in
remember
love,
the art.
destroy like the
That's it.
comic
That's
book
absolutely
universes. So.
Yeah. I mean, all in all, it was I think like a standard kind of like 90s, you know, 80s, 90s kind of storyline, you know, just like universes kind of being destroyed because of, you know, the love between Solar and Void.
Meeting. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, I mean, it worked into the whole story. I know that if anybody caught the Liefeld, the Rob Servation podcast where he talked about the Deathmate crossover, it seemed like it was kind of interesting getting the story out across all, you know, across the two different companies and all the different studios to kind of have everything run in continuity. I don't know if you remember, Sal, when you were working on it, or if you're just too much focused on like the art part of it, if you really kind of had a sense of what the story was going to be, or if you're just kind of focused on doing your job within the book.
I'm just doing my job, and what I remembered, mainly were the delays. And I remember that all the books from Valiant keep coming out on time,
Yeah.
and just seeing the wonderful work that was being produced, and all of that. Just like a really good collection of fantastic artists at the time, and other artists that would carve their own place in history, like Scott Campbell and of course Brett. Wow,
Yeah, and as
Yeah, because this issue here, I believe, featured it featured obviously characters from Wildcats, but characters from Gen 13, from Turok, Dinosaur Hunter,
Yeah.
and Cyberforce and Exo Manowar. I want to say.
and yeah, it does. You're right, and I have to say, like, I think that this was the best those characters looked, and that's just me because I'm an image kid. But as Astro Zombie brought up, his first appearance of Gen 13, I believe. That's right. I do believe that was.
I think it was as well too. Yeah.
Sadly, I think some of the members, some of the Image members, were not a part of the crossover. Jim Valentino, I think. Spawn,
Yeah.
Yep.
Todd McFarlane,
Eric
and
Larson.
yes.
And Eric Larson wasn't either. Yeah.
It
Oh my
seemed
God,
like
you're taking me way back. Yes.
yeah, it seemed like it was really pretty much Extreme Studios and Wildstorm for the most part. As a part of this crossover, which is, it would have been cool to see some of the other characters. I don't think it suffered too much because honestly, I don't think characters like Spawn would fit well into this crossover with the storyline. I don't think, honestly.
He's too powerful.
Yeah, I mean,
For me, it wouldn't fit, in my opinion, for the storyline. I mean, technically, I think he could probably undo most of the things that are in the storyline, so it would ruin it.
As I remember, I think we did 6 pages for the book, Brett and I, but I could be wrong.
I was gonna say if you go ahead and point out the pages you worked on. I'll say this. I know that Scott Williams inked quite a bit of this book as well over various different artists. This has a very house style, obviously Wildstorm to it. I mean, you can tell Jim Lee's work, you can tell Silvestri's work. I was wondering, and this is just something I've always kind of thought, and maybe you can let me know if this is true or not. Do you know if Jim did a lot of the layouts for the entire book, or if everyone was free to do what they wanted to do within the pages that they were given?
I actually don't remember. That's probably a really good question for Brett. I don't remember if that's the case, honestly. I just remember I was working on this crossover and being just really super excited about it. This is my first like mega crossover, event that I was involved in. Some reason I have that middle panel vividly in my mind.
That's awesome.
I mean, this came out too at the peak of like the comic book spectacular boom, I should say, when this first came out. Like the series, his crossover event. So the time period, that's what that's known as. And this project was heavily promoted. It was heavily promoted everywhere. It sold thousands of copies. I want to say hundreds of thousands of copies at the very least. So
I feel like the sales were very good.
The sales were very good, and
the shipping issues were what they were. But
the shipping issues only occurred for the Image titles, and
right.
Issues was the first 4 main issues that came out for the series, which were were the Valiant issues. They could be read in any order. The end issues, the ones that Image did, I don't believe they could be read in any order. And I believe it was, which one came out? So I think it was Deathmate Red came out after the epilogue issue.
Yeah.
And the epilogue is obviously supposed to be the ending issue. So there were issues within that. I mean, despite like all the cover dates too, I know some of the cover dates, like it's marked like September 1993, but it was really like February 1994. I want to say, if I'm thinking correctly to my comic book codex in my brain. So
I think from the business side of it, I don't know if if the retailers were able to you know, or would have to reorder, or because the books came out so late. I know that I think I
Yeah.
remember that they were able to not return the copies, but you know, reorder the books, something really strange like that.
Yeah,
Is
I
that
remember. Yeah, I think Rob mentioned something like that in his podcast. By the way, guys, if you get a chance, go to Rob's Observations on any of the podcasts, Apple or wherever you can go, iTunes, and look up the Deathmate pod he did. I think he did like 2 episodes of it. I can't remember. Maybe it was just 1 episode, but he goes really in depth in there and talks a lot about kind of what Sal was bringing up with the late the late shipping and some of the some of the stuff that specifically Extreme Studios had to go through. That was kind of their fault. But Robert Frank Haley said, "Who's the character fighting Ripclaw?" I believe that's Torok, isn't it?
Yeah, I believe so.
yes,
Yeah.
Dinosaur Hunter.
Yeah.
Yep.
Mark's
Very
amazing
sexy
artwork.
voodoo there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some of the most
You can
beautiful
always tell
women.
Silvestri's women.
I was just gonna say, I
was
say
just
like,
gonna say that myself. Yes.
yeah, I was
You
gonna
always
say
tell
like
the
Mark
women.
stands out. Mark stands out in this book as soon as the page, the couple pages before when he starts doing his run here. I mean, it just absolutely. As soon as he starts drawing women, I mean, it's just you can tell it's Mark right off the bat.
And then Eric Silvestri was one of the writers on this book too.
Correct.
I believe.
Yes. Mark's brother, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, Brandon Choi did some writing on this as well, right? I want to say if I was just looking at the book earlier. I'd have to
Yeah,
go
it was
back to-
Brandon Choi and
Yeah.
Eric Silvestri that wrote it, and then
Okay,
I think
yeah.
people that penciled it. Brett Booth was a penciler. Mark Silvestri was a penciler. Capullo, Lee, Will Sportaccio. Who am I forgetting?
look at that
Brandon Peterson and J. Scott Campbell,
Yeah.
but he went under Jeffrey
Scott.
Scott then.
Yeah,
I think, am I forgetting it? Scott Clark.
Scott Clark. Yep. And Scott Clark is very noticeable in this because he had a very different style than some of the kind of house style, I'd say, of Wildstorm at the time. But these are just beautiful pages. I mean, as far as the way the book looks, this book was just a very just gorgeously drawn book, and the colors were great. Again, like I said, Joe Chito did a fantastic job as always with this.
Yeah, and then the inkers, Sal, you were one of the inkers on this book, and then it was Scott Williams, Trevor Scott, and
Alex Gardner. Did
Alex Garner?
Gardner?
Yeah, I think Gardner
Yes.
Gardner was in here. Yep.
So did you just ink over one particular artist, or was it multiple artists within this book? Was it
I
6
just inked over
consecutive pages?
I inked over Brett's stuff. Yes.
Oh, just over
I think
Brett's
it
stuff.
was. I
Okay.
think it was more than 6. As you were flipping through the book, I think it was probably closer to 10.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh.
Yeah. There's
Oh,
quite
pages.
more than I thought.
Amazing.
I love that half shot, that side profile of Voodoo there.
Yeah, he draws the best women.
It's so good.
It's beautiful. I love the hair. I'm big on hair.
Yeah, I was just about to
Like,
say you are super big
I'm
on
always
hair.
looking at hair. That's just my thing. And eyes. Like, look at the lashes, the shine in the eye, everything.
Oh, some
Just
great eyes right
proportion. That
there.
is a great side profile shot. That's gorgeous.
The lips, the chin, yeah, everything just drawn just so well with that.
Look at the hair, though. I love hair. I can't help myself. All the detail on that page is insane.
That that's one of the things I loved about this book, and what I loved about Wildstorm in general, Sal, is like it always had like this kind of futuristic feel to all the tech that was in the Wildstorm universe. Very kind of manga inspired. Oh, I wanted to.
The next ones are the Campbell pages.
Yeah.
Those are the Jeffrey Scott Campbell pages.
Yep, early. You can tell with the Lord Emp face up there. I mean, he's got a very him and Garner's work early on, I think, were very distinct style wise. They meshed so well with each other.
His art has changed drastically. His
Oh,
art
100%.
has changed drastically. I
miss this
prefer
style.
his this kind of stuff. Yes, I prefer
Yeah.
that kind of stuff. And Gen 13 was his best work, in my opinion.
This is Scotty's and Trevor's work.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like I said, Scott Clark definitely stands out style wise a lot. He's structure wise a lot different than a lot of the Wildstorm artists at the time. Really kind of had his own feel of stuff. A lot more heavy shadows with his work.
Mhm.
But I do.
he used to like to reference the muscle magazines and was a lot
Ever
more
since.
into the anatomy, you know, the muscle
Yeah.
density,
Yeah.
things like that.
The anatomy on the men is gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous. I mean, that is like pure high T men, and I love it. I'm here for
Yes.
all the muscles and
The way
everything.
that it should be.
I'm here for it.
Comics, baby.
You know,
Let's go.
even the woman looks very strong, very sexy, but very strong. And I love that. I love to see like a woman that is, you know, she's curvy, she has the curves of a woman, and she still looks strong and sexy and beautiful. Because you can have both.
100%. I think that's what some people forget these days. You can have strong women and still keep them feminine, keep them sexy, but at the same time, keep them powerful. I mean, comic books are, you're dealing with superpowered people, you know, women, men. You got to have them have their abilities to do what they do, but still be sexy, be attractive. And that's one of the things I liked about guys like Silvestri, Turner, you know, artists like that, Brett Booth. You would draw attractive people, you know, not just male, female, but like attractive people. Like that was the whole thing in comics. I mean, nobody wants to see ugly superheroes.
Yeah.
Yes, rest in peace. Absolutely.
Rest in peace, Scott Clark. Yes.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. I mean, he lives on through his work, though. He lives on through his work, so.
Yeah, he was one of my best friends at the studio, along with Brett and Gardner. We used to play basketball. Yeah, we used to play basketball a lot, and so it was really sad. I remember when Brett called me and let me know about, you know, his untimely death. It was kind of a shock because we had spent so much time at the studio. Whenever we had appearances, and they could say we went to Vegas or went out to party, I remember he was heavily into Stephen King books, so we would get in his car and drive and listen to the you know, to the books on tape that they had at the time, all the way up there, and come back. And that's what I remember mostly about him. You know, very fondly remembering all the one-on-one battles that we had.
Who did you meet first working there? Like, who did you form a bond with first?
I would say Brett. You know,
Brett.
I felt and have always felt closest to him for obvious reasons.
Mhm.
But you know, if I were to name a person that you know, you hate to make comparisons, but I would say Scotty Clark, because I also work with him a lot.
Yeah.
And then it would be Gardner, because we did, you know, spend a lot of time together, and we got to talk about, you know, a lot of stuff. Or those were probably my top three, the people that I spent the most amount of time with.
The Art of Roy cover said those Brandon Peterson pages. I know he's in here. I'll be honest with you. I could not pick out exactly what pages that Peterson did in here, but he definitely is.
The ones in the beginning.
In the beginning ones? Okay. Yeah. Sorry about that.
See, I loved
This
how
is Greg
fun.
Capullo.
Yeah.
This is the Greg Capullo stuff. This is similar to the style that he was using on X-Force.
I was just gonna say, okay, yeah.
Time. So you can still see that the way he still has elements of it, but you know, I can recognize that right away.
Definitely the lower left panel of Man of War being pushed out of his armor or whatever. Definitely,
absolutely. That's exactly what came to mind for me. And the panel next to it with the screaming face.
Yeah. So I guess I forgot that he was even in this issue. That's crazy.
You zoomed in on it too, so.
Yeah. Yeah, I zoomed it because I remember when I was a kid, I loved that panel. It was dynamic. It was, you know, it was cool.
I love that panel there.
Yeah.
That conveys a lot of.
The next page is a Campbell page, or it just looks. I can't really quite remember. Is it a Capullo page? Is it a Campbell page?
See, here was my thing. Like, I know Scott Williams did a lot of inking on this book, and I was wondering if he did like heavy lifting with some of the artists on this book, because they kind of blend together a little bit. Where you're like, oh, it could be this guy, it could be this guy, you know?
Oh, okay. The prior page, that was Jim.
I was just gonna say, I know that this is Jim Lee. Yeah,
the prior page had to be Jim's page.
Yeah, that would make sense. But it's interesting how much Capullo kind of blended with Lee there in the two pages. Like it worked very well. And I don't know if it was because Scott was
Scott
inking them.
Sims.
Yeah. And, I mean, that's another thing about Scott Williams. I mean, he was so much of Jim Lee's look. You know, not taking anything away from Jim Lee, fantastic artist. You know, obviously, but like Scott added so much to the look. Like they meshed so well together, much like Campbell and Garner.
Yeah.
Like they were like one and the same. Like you couldn't. It was hard to see Jim's work without Scott being there. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I love Gardner's work. He's an amazing inker and an artist and painter in his own right. All the stuff that he does now, he's a
Yeah, I
great
was and I've said it before. Like J. Scott Campbell has never looked as good as he did when he was rolling with Gardner. Hold on a second.
Oh, poor Joe.
Sorry, guys.
You need
Sorry.
like a cup of tea.
Yeah, maybe. But yeah, those early Gen 13 books. I mean, the combination between J. Scott Campbell and Garner were fantastic. Like that's another duo that just worked so well together. Yeah, and Jimmy's saying that was Brandon Peterson, then Jim. Okay.
Part of me feels like even though you can tell all of the artwork apart due to the artists in this, it's that every artist that was working on this book, they all were kind of on the same page and trying to produce a certain style so that the styles, they looked unique, but all blended in together to make sense of the story, if that makes sense. I hope I'm wording that correctly.
I get what you're saying, and I agree. Yeah, absolutely. And this book, unlike all the other books, like it stands out because it does work so well. Like the artists mesh so well with each other style wise throughout the entire book. There's only a couple styles that really kind of pull away a little bit. Like Scott Clark pulls away a little bit, but
yeah, he was always a little different. I agree.
Yeah,
and Trevor's inking was a little bit different as well.
Yeah.
Who did these pages, Joe? Do you know, or Sal? Do you know?
Who? What?
This is Jim.
This is Jim
Lee.
Lee.
Jim Lee. I was going to say this looks like Jim Lee to me.
Jim Lee and Scott Williams.
Yeah, I think he pretty much wraps up this book except for the last couple of pages. Roy says it's too bad that Liefeld side dropped the ball so badly. I know their book came out the latest, that's for sure. Sylvester had a few good inkers, Bat, Weems, especially. Absolutely. Absolutely did.
I don't think they were. I don't think Bat was.
I love this.
He hadn't come along yet. Weems. Those.
Yeah, I was gonna say because Bat wasn't in this. I know that.
This
maybe
this is Portasio, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yes, this is Wills.
No, he's not credited in the book, is he?
He's not.
I think he is.
Is
I
he?
swear.
Okay.
I literally. That's why I said his name.
Okay, I swear when I was looking at it earlier, when I was flipping through this, I was looking at the artist. I didn't see his name, and again,
look how
sometimes when I'm looking at a bunch of names in a row, like things will just kind of disappear.
This
I don't know if that's the dyslexia or whatever, but
this looks very, very heavily like Jim Starlin kind of inspired these two pages. Have you ever seen like some of the I think it's like Adam Warlock stuff I'm talking about, or Silver Surfer stuff that he did. That's what that kind of reminds me of. So
to me, that's an iconic cover. You know, it's still
there he is.
Will Spartasio and Scott Williams.
Yep.
Will Spartasio, Scott Williams.
Go ahead, Sal.
Scott Williams. If you look at the credits again, Brandon Peterson is there first, and you know.
Okay.
Brandon,
yep. Peterson and Scott Williams. Yeah.
So I was right. It was Greg Capullo and then Jim Lee. Just to clarify that a little bit.
So Peterson was first. Yep. Brett Silvestri.
I was there.
J. Scott Campbell. Scott Clark. Greg Capullo. Jim Lee. Wills. No, this cover is great. And this is drawn by Silvestri and inked by Jim Lee, right?
My two favorite artists of all time.
Jamming together. I mean, yeah. Jamming together on the cover. I mean, that's some great stuff right there. It is really cool to see Jim ink over Mark Silvestri because you can see both of them come through in this piece, and it's just a very good amalgamation of the two artists come together.
Absolutely.
I honestly really loved it when Jim inked himself and when Mark inked himself. as well as Will's. You know, there's a certain energy there. There's something to it, and I know that Scott's work is really polished and beautiful, and the
Yeah.
beautiful, immaculate work that it is. But there's something to be said about the artist, you know, raw material, image, vision, whatever you want to call it. So I love to see that stuff, whether it's Greg Capullo or, you know, especially Todd McFarlane, of course. But there's something to be said for that. And some of my favorite, you know, pieces of work, Will's. I remember seeing Will ink himself with, you know, Sharpies and microns and rotring pens, repeatograph pens, and I would just marvel at how much he was into structure and how much he was able to keep in the final product from his pencils. You know what I mean? I don't know if that makes sense.
Right. No, absolutely.
To me, even though it's maybe more aesthetically pleasing, if you have Scott Williams inky or Danny Mickey or whatever
Right.
great inker you want to, you know, put into the equation, but the raw power, and I feel like, and I told this to Brett himself because I think his inks look fantastic over himself. You know, on the Lost Serpent prints that he did, he shared some of those early, you know, inks that he did over his own stuff, and
his Patreon page,
especially on the backgrounds. You know, I had him send me the inks because there was so much energy on the backgrounds, and a lot of the stuff in the way, probably go into it a little bit later, but a lot of the stuff that I use on the backgrounds, he probably doesn't know anything about this, but it comes from me having seen his you know, his inks, and so much more translates from the penciler, from the penciler's vision. I don't know if you guys can even think about this or know what I'm talking about. And although as I said before, and stated before, it's, you know, it's more aesthetically pleasing to have, especially Bat and Joe and Scott Williams ink you, but so much more of the structure translates to the final page or the final product.
Oh, 100%. I mean, I've even noticed in my own art, like I ink myself completely different than, you know, some of the guys have inked me, whether it's Bat or Weems or Chance Wolf lately. You know, I like the polished look of inkers like Williams and all them that would jam on the guys, but seeing them ink their own stuff is cool because, like Silvestri, for instance, Silvestri looked great with Bat and Weems during that era of Top Cow, and when they were all jamming together, it looked fantastic. Great work. And then when he started inking himself, you know, obviously he changed his style up a little bit, but he started inking himself. It's still like just fantastic, but the energy, there's so much more energy in Silvestri's work nowadays, especially with the newer style that he's doing. But there's a great contrast there. If you look at Silvestri now and you look at Silvestri when he was jamming with Weems or jamming with Bat back in the day, you can notice the big difference. It's still Silvestri, but you see what is added and what is I guess subtracted in a way. But kind of like what you and I were talking about, Sal, before we went live, I just really enjoy seeing the combination of two guys or whoever it might be, you know, just two artists, an artist and inker come together, and what the final product is. You know, it's not just one person, it's the combination of the two people, and it just creates this brand new piece of art. And that's what I really like about between an inker and an artist or penciler.
Yeah, and as an inker, you have to find somebody that is confident in, you know, what you're going to bring to the table, because it makes it so much easier to feel, you know, one of the best, you're not going to believe this, but Stephen Platt, who was a really, really super tight penciler, I was helping him out on some pages on Soul Saga because I think it was Joe Weems, for whatever reason, couldn't continue on the work. And at the time, he wanted to help him out with, because Marlo Alquiza was inking him. So I jumped in for a few pages. And you're not going to believe the advice he gave me. And it's so true. He told me, Sal, go ahead and make mistakes. So he was talking about, you know, if you're going to go out and you're going to be so worried about making mistakes and trying to make everything super tight and 100%, you know, like the pencils, that you're gonna lose some of that more dynamic effect that
For
you're
sure.
gonna. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great advice. I mean, I one thing I loved about, and you'll hear me talk about Silvestri quite a bit on this channel. What I loved about Silvestri was, if you look at some of his work, it's not perfect. It's not perfect by any means, and I think that's great, because I think it adds to energy within a book. Like, nothing has to be absolutely perfect. Every line doesn't have to be crazy straight. Some of the rendering doesn't have to be perfect, because there's some things that within the quote unquote mess ups, if that's what you want to call it, is that energy and is that dynamics.
Yeah, because if it's perfect, if it's too much like real life, or then it's boring. Honestly, quite
Yeah,
honestly,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
agree
that's
with
why I
you.
like Brett's work so much, because the way he contorts the figures, the female forms, and how he pushes the envelope, it's really kind of like what gets you into comics in the first place. I don't think anybody walks up to the store the first time and just thinks, "Wow, that looks like a great story. I'm gonna go ahead." I'm sorry, no disrespect to any writers, but you're gonna walk up to, "Wow, that's an amazing looking woman," or "That's a great fight scene," or "This is how I thought Wolverine should have always been drawn." And then you go in, and then you read your story and stuff like that. But it's always, to me, it's always been about the art.
I mean, I think comics are
absolutely.
meant to, you know, comics are meant to convey all of the action that's going on and all of the storyline with minimal words for the most part. Most comics have minimal words, unless you're talking about a writer that's like Alan Moore, or, there's very, very few.
Yeah,
Okay. But, it's, how can I put it? Those exaggerations, that dynamism that, like Kirby introduced, I feel, into the comic book
Yes,
industry, that is really what draws the people in. So
absolutely.
people don't
on
want
I
to
know.
see very realistic. I don't feel that people want to see very like true to life stuff in a comic book, because it takes away the escapism and that fantasy element.
Right. For me, I just loved Mark and Jim's stuff. I love going to the comic book store. You're already anticipating Jim's book is going to drop. It's going to come out, and just the whole day was just an event for me. I know that Jim's
yeah,
stuff is coming out, and Todd McFarlane. You get to the store, you hold that comic book and in your hands, and you're going through the pages, and you're just kind of taking it all in. It's like you're in the Millennium Falcon, and all of the freaking stars are going by. That's how your mind feels.
yeah,
Some of
yeah.
my favorite runs on Mark Silvestri on Uncanny. Those are
Mm,
beautiful.
yes.
Some people don't like the inks on the book, but for me, and we talked about this before, I don't really think that line work matters all that much.
Yeah,
Please
yeah.
don't fire me. but but the strength of the drawing, it's in itself. It's not the inks, and you can have a number of people ink Mark and Brett and Jim, and they're all would have been successful regardless of who that lucky person
True,
was that
true,
put
true.
that pen to paper or that ink to the paper. It's really always all about the penciler and his work and the strength of it. It's really not line work doesn't really, it's ironic that I'm saying that, but line work is not really all that important in my opinion.
Yeah, we talked a little bit about that
Interesting.
before we went live. And you brought it up, and I didn't think about it, but the more we talked about it, I was like, oh, that's a good point. That was a really good point that you made.
I
Um, I,
mean, yes, go ahead, I'm sorry.
I was just gonna say, before I forget, I highlighted this comment because this was great. From Aldian, yeah, I think
Aldion.
Aldian. Oh,
Aldion.
do that. Aldian. So
I
the same
think.
thing goes for music. The art draws you into listening to the record, and yeah, absolutely, absolutely. You think of some of the great album covers, and just kind of bring, like, if you went through the old school record stores, or even CDs, and you walk down whatever aisle it might be. For me, it was like metal or something. You go down and you just see like these crazy awesome covers. It might be from a band that you never even heard of before, but you pick it up and you're like, I'm gonna check it out because it looks cool. You know.
No, that makes sense.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Hold on a second.
Poor Joe.
Sorry.
True, though.
How do you feel
Yeah.
that your inking style has changed since back then?
Oh my
Like-
god, I feel like going up and down. I started out as probably someone that didn't really deserve or shouldn't have been in the business, but we mentioned this before. I think I just felt in like the perfect scenario for me, with where I had all these influences around me, some of the greatest artists in the business and up and coming artists. So it was a really good opportunity for me to develop. I started out really loose in my pencils, went through a period where it got looser and then super tight. You know, some of the Magdalena stuff I did for Top Cow was really, some of the Witchblade stuff was really just markers and, you know, repeatographs and stuff like that. And I feel like that was really good, because at this point now, I think I'm able to do a bit of both. You know, I can make it really have that that Scott Williams feel, like the polished finish to it, and the Gardner Williams end of the spectrum. And then I can probably, you know, not do it as well, but fake a little bit of the you know, the Joe Weems, Adelsa Corona, Danny Mickey, not so much because it's not as edgy, but Joe Weems and at the other end of the spectrum. So it's changed a lot over the years, and I feel like Joe and I were talking about this a little bit, that I feel like I went a little bit too much into that, like, really gritty, too texturized end of the spectrum, and I wanted to pull it back a little bit. I'll show you guys a little bit of that in a minute, so that you can see it for yourselves.
And I loved every bit of it. I was just like,
I love the gritty stuff too.
Yeah,
so
I was just like, I'll take it all. The gritty,
I'm interested to
cleaner,
see
it's all good.
Yeah, I'm interested to see what you mean by that and why you feel that way. Because I
It's just-
personally like that gritty stuff.
It's just kind of, I mean, Brett mentioned that he wanted the book to have a Wildstorm feel to it, and I think I kind of was maybe losing a little bit of, you know, of what it was his intention in the first place. So I felt like I had to dial it back a little bit, and luckily, you know, he was happy. I hope with both of the results.
Well, I mean, first of all, everything that you've done on over Brett's stuff with the Artist Elite, even the Gunslinger Spawn, but the Artist Elite with being that kind of Wildstorm feel looks fantastic. But when you explained that to me earlier before we went live, I could definitely see what you were talking about with a Wildstorm feel and like kind of what you're doing or what you were doing. Still, to me, it still, even in that, has a Wildstorm feel. It's probably the most Wildstorm-esque book, or at least looking book out there, in my opinion. And a lot of that has to do with Brett, you know, and obviously Andrew doing the colors as well brings a really cool dynamic to it. Also, which is why I've said it before, it gets me so excited about the Lost Serpent Prince and anything that Brett's doing on his own, because it's the only thing that gives me those old Wildstorm vibes, you know, and I miss that so much in the comic book world. You really kind of only see that stuff in indies, I think, you know, like you're not going to see it in mainstream books. So that's one of the reasons why I'm a huge supporter of Brett Booth and Lost Serpent Prince, anything he does as far as that goes, because that's, you know, tickling my nostalgia.
In a perfect world for me, Brett could, you know, walk into an El Paso liquor store. Oh, never mind, he doesn't drink, but like a 7-Eleven or whatever, and win the lottery, and he could probably buy Wildstorm back from DC. And
oh man,
because he would be, I don't think that there's anyone that cares as much about, you know, the universe and all those properties than he would. I mean, that would be, I was
100%
about that this
100%.
That would be an unbelievable scenario for all of us that are fans of the style of the books of that era, and you know, the Wildstorm books themselves.
Yeah, I was, you know, the times that Brett has been on, we've talked a little bit about that, and you can just tell he's got a passion and love for those characters. And go a little bit of sidebar here. It's no secret that I'm not a big fan of what DC is doing with the Wildstorm characters right now at all. Like, I don't think it doesn't seem like the Wildstorm characters, doesn't look like the Wildstorm characters. It looks like an absolute abomination, honestly. But Brett, like, it boggles my mind where they didn't reach out to people that were there that loved the characters, that would have wrote a story that would have been suitable for those characters, for the fans, you know. And a guy like Brett absolutely would have done that. I mean, I've talked to him either live or behind the scenes, whatever it was, and he was just talking about story ideas he had for Wildcats or Gen 13. I'm just like, dude, like, right there, like, that's why don't people just go with that? You know, give the fans what they want when it comes to those characters, because honestly, DC has put those characters on the shelf for so long, and they're special characters in my opinion. Yeah, I grew up with them, and maybe that's why they mean so much to me, but you know, there's such rich, fun story there in history with those characters. It's a shame. It's a shame what's going on right now with them in DC. So
Yeah,
I would second that.
every time I see the Wildcats #1 cover, it just does something to the back of my mind. You know, it just transported me to another place. And so I don't think there's anyone #1 more capable, caring, and willing to, you know, take on that universe, and probably has mapped it out in his mind a million times. And he will go with everything. And I can't, you know, it has to be much better than, you know, what's being put out right now.
Well, it would be much better than what is
100%
put out right now.
Yeah.
So the issue, as someone that works in a comic book shop, and you know, I hear a lot of people talking about books and just, you know, opinions all over October and everything. You know, I spent 12 years working in a comic book shop, and then I go back and just work cons, and I work in October now. So just hearing feedback and whatever from people in the shop, the people that are drawn to that book coming out are people that they're in the age range of 31 to 50. That is the age range. So those are the people that want to buy that book. When they bought the book and it wasn't what they expected it to be, and the characters weren't the characters that they know and love, that is, you know, because it isn't a newer generation picking up those books. It isn't.
Yeah.
It's the 30 through that age range that are picking up the books, because these are characters that they know and love and grew up with and want. I mean, really, I think Brett should crowdfund a dinosaur comic book. He would make millions of dollars. There is a market out there for it. I say it all the time. And then he could go and take that money and invest it, and then try to get Wildstorm back.
I'm sure he wouldn't
that's
need
what
a
I
lot
would
of
do if I
convincing
was
for
him.
that.
If he did a dinosaur book, dinosaur comics always sell. Dinosaurs are cool. They appeal to everybody. But if he did one with his art style on top of it, and the passion that he has for dinosaurs, because he does paleo art and everything, I just think it would be, you know, an insanely smart choice for him to do. And he could crowdfund it and take all that money for himself.
Absolutely. But in the absence of that, if we can't have what we really want and what would be better for all involved, you know, I just hope that he can, you know, do the Lost Serpent Prince and all the other properties that he has in his mind. And that's one of the reasons why I'm really excited about crowdfunding.
Yeah.
I know there's been some issues with some creators, but imagine if a lot of creators of the past would have had the freedom to go out and explore all these other, you know, possibilities, and how many wonderful things were going on. And I mean, I don't want to mention anybody in particular, but how many like beautiful, wonderful stories, images were in so many creators' minds that were never able to see the side of day, because they had to constantly, you know, put on the table and take care of all these other things. So to me, I mean, this is an exciting time. I don't really, if you're able to put out a comic and there's a market for it, that is amazing. That is wonderful.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And who's to say that you don't have, you know, the next X-Men or Wolverine, Batman character out there? Because at the end of the day, the fans are going to decide what properties are going to be, you know, good enough. We've never had that choice, if you think about it. Like when have we ever had choice. And 20 years ago, you're really limited to what the big publishing houses were putting out there. You didn't have anyone else's. I don't know if it's a popular or unpopular, but that's just the kind of stuff that goes in through my mind. Now we have
Oh, for sure.
a plethora of choices, and it's probably kind of like what Image was supposed to be like in the first place,
I've said it before that the indie scene really reminds me of like Image, like, and I've said it too about Comicsgate specifically, with a lot of the creators like me they're in Comicsgate. We grew up on that era of comics, and when we go to step out and finally do stuff on our own and put our own books out there, our influences show through. The storytelling kind of comes through. I was talking to Sean Ahrendt, everybody that co-host on Out and Stuff and co-host on here. Shout out to Sean. But I went a couple weeks back to hang out with him, and we were just talking about the reason why I think guys our age put out some fun stories that click with a lot of people is because we grew up with the sensibilities of the storytelling of the 80s, the late 80s, early 90s. And some people can give some of the story back in the 90s shit, and I understand that, but there was just fun stories. There was good story beats or good character development, ways of doing characters back then, and that's what we bring to the table. And I think a lot of the comics that are coming out from guys like me, as far as our age group, are bringing that back. Like that's the closest thing that I've seen to an Image comics. Not putting it up there with like the art and the names and all that kind of stuff, but just the feel. There's something about it that's just, it feels like a comic book.
Yeah, I mean, right now, I will say manga is dominating over comics. And the question we all need to ask ourselves that are like, that if you're in the comic industry, is why? Why is manga dominating over comics currently? Because it is in shops.
100% it is, yeah.
And just manga's outselling comics. It makes me sad a little bit. Not that I don't like manga, but I'm a comic lover first.
Hey, I would say, this this country made comics, in my opinion, popular. They started the superhero kind of genre, and they should be no reason why they shouldn't be number one in putting out those kind of comic books, and they aren't anymore. And there's a reason for that, and we all know about it. We talk about it all the time. So it's up to, I think, the independents. And anybody that's been in the industry like Brett's doing, to go out and do your own thing. Sal brought it up earlier that a lot of Brett's characters and ideas that he wants to get out there very much feel like the stuff that you would love out of comic books. Obviously the Lost Serpent Prince, which is going right now through Artist Elite. That's a fun, that's honestly, that's the only part of that book, no offense to everybody else, that I buy the book for, is for Brett's story. I can't wait for it to get into its own title. Also, stuff that he's got working, also like Parsec and things of that nature. Like those are some really cool ideas. It's a speedster kind of book. Like those are alternatives right there to characters in the mainstream that if he was actually able to get out and put out, I think would click very well with readers like me, with like us, and probably most of the people in the chat, honestly.
Sure.
I agree. I think too, promotion has changed a lot too. Like there aren't really promotional book tours anymore. Like as far as like comics go, and there was promotional tour for. I'm so
absolutely,
sorry.
my man.
We were discussing before the show about like the promotional tour that you were on for the book that we just looked at.
Yeah. Deathmate Black, by the way, everybody.
Thank you. The Deathmate Black book. So. I don't really see that anymore. I don't see like the promotional tour. I see like there's promotion definitely like in shop and across like pop culture things, as far as anything that's related to movies. I guess that's more what gets promoted. But back like in the early 90s, when I was a kid, there was like the comic creators, everyone involved in the comics, like there was promotional tours that went on, and they were huge and they were hits. And, people can meet and greet with them. And, you experienced that. What was that like for you? Like,
that was super awesome. I mean, I landed in comics, and I landed my dream job. I'm probably one of the, very few people get to do that.
Yeah.
So going out all over the country and meeting fans, as I didn't know it at the time, but like some of those moments are some of the best moments of my life. And I think I have a picture here if you
Yeah, let
want
me
to
bring it
share
up.
I have a picture from the Killer Instinct tour, and
See,
there's
we don't do the tours anymore like this. Like, do you know what I'm saying?
That just
Like,
looks like a fun time, you know.
look at everybody
are you
there. It's
able
a
to
group
see the
of
image?
talent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so it obviously Brett's on the right side. Then I have I'm the guy with the Boston hat, Alex
Yeah.
Garner,
Red Sox hat
Brandon
on.
Choi, Jim Lee, and Joe Mendoza, who is Will Portasio's brother-in-law. But yeah, this was a really fun, exciting time for all of us. And I think 19, 20 years old at the time, so that was a blast going all around.
Rock stars. That's right.
The country looking for meeting fans. And there's a funny anecdote. There's a guy out there, his name is Andrew Magnum, who I met at a store in Texas, and we just through Facebook, he started following, and he's telling me all about how he met me at the tour and had a couple books signed. So that is a really, really super neat moment. He
That's
does
awesome.
he did some inks for DC and works on his own title, as well as he does covers here and there for Dynamite. But that was what it's all about. That was what it's all about at the time, going out and meeting the fans, appreciating them for what they did, which is fund through their purchases all these comic books. But I think we went all the way. I think we went through Texas and came back through California,
Oh,
all the way
wow.
from north, Santa Cruz, Sacramento.
That's awesome.
We came back in on a tour bus that I can't remember what rock band had used for their own tour bus. The guy was giving us, we were wide-eyed 18 and 19 years old, 19 years,
Oh, man.
20 years old. And he was telling us all the stories of what was taking place on those tour buses.
On that bus.
Eyes were like about this one. It was like a little bit different of a scene right now, but that was an amazing time.
Oh man, that would have been so good. Well, we probably have another hour left in the show at least, so I'm gonna shift gears and let's get into some of the inks and stuff we were talking about. But before we do, Jimmy had said something about the Batman Joker Deadly Duo 2 comes out tomorrow.
It's out tomorrow.
I got mine today. Yeah, I got mine today, and it's awesome. It is awesome. My store comes out on Tuesday for some reason.
So I think what it is, because really they're not supposed to sell it until Wednesday. They're competing with the internet release to prevent people from buying that, because we get our shipment in Monday. We get our books. We're not allowed to put them out until Wednesday because it's interesting. But that's what I believe it is, because the internet stuff releases on Tuesday. So
but yes, so I'm glad that they come out on Tuesdays. Paul was I'm assuming the bus comment. He said, what did I just sit in? Yeah.
Oh, it's this. I think it's, where is it?
What are you looking for?
Oh, I thought you were looking for a certain comic.
Who, me?
I thought you were looking for a certain comment. Sorry.
Oh, a comment. No.
Yeah,
sorry.
I just
brought up that one. Yeah.
I'm tired. Sorry.
It's all right. Muttman said, touring comic book artists, anyone involved during those days is so fortunate. Fun times fun time for a fan. Yeah. That was the time. Like I said, we'll never get that kind of era back, like of the 90s. Comics, they were just rock stars. Yeah. I mean, comic book artists were rock stars, like the tours and everything. I mean, it was right up there with going and seeing a rock star. When you went to a convention to see your favorite artist or writers or whatever, it was very much like meeting a rock star. I miss those days quite a bit. Sal, do you have anything you want to share? Because I know there's a window down here, but you might have to share a different window because whatever you're sharing down there is not
Oh, okay. I
showing up.
was just looking at stuff that people might want to see if you want to jump on that kind of stuff because
Yeah,
I
let's
want to
You
share.
want to see everything.
It's
exactly.
really mostly
Same
about
thing last time you were here. Like let's see it all. Let's go.
See everything that you want to show.
here we go. Let's go through it. I can't show that, but let's start right off the bat with that. Can't show that
Just let me
either.
know when it's safe to pull up,
Yeah.
and I will pull it
Hold
up.
up, let me see. Let's go. Let's start with some LSP. I shared this piece before, but want to give the fans another look at it, and then
Okay, I can bring
share
this up.
the amazing colors that
Yeah, I love
Andrew did. So we'll start with Brett's pencils,
Gorgeous.
Yeah.
which is probably like one of my favorite images.
It's beautiful.
One of my favorite images, but we've seen that before. Here are the inks, which are and then we're gonna something that I wanted to share because I think it's an amazing piece. You know,
Andrew has
color.
been jamming with Brett for quite a while now, and they make a really good
They do.
good
They
team
work,
when it comes to the
they
colors.
work well together. I think
They absolutely do.
he's a great colorist too because you can still see all of the detail that's in there.
Yeah.
He's not overpowering any of it.
Yeah.
He knocks out just enough of the inks. You know, that makes me happy. Doesn't overpower everything else. But if you guys look at this image, he's just done an amazing job on the colors here. Just
Yeah.
Oh, the
and
hair.
this is why this is one of my favorite images that I've ever been involved with, because the beauty of Brett's pencils and how Andrew put the whole piece together. I think this is going to be an alternate cover at some point, or if Brett decides something
Variant.
else. But yes.
Yeah.
That would be a beautiful variant. That should
Yeah,
definitely be a cover. That will definitely like draw people in. I feel it's beautiful.
So I wanted to share that, and let's see if I can open up another image here.
I'm gonna pull you down just in case. You let me know when it's safe to pull you back up.
I should be safe no matter what. I just wanted to be a celebration about their stuff.
Okay.
'Cause I think last time was a little bit too much about my work, and obviously
the chat is loving that piece though. They all.
Here's another cover for
again, look
for
at those
Dynamite.
heads. Awesome.
Yeah, look at that. Look at the body proportions.
Yeah.
And all the detail on the guns and everything, and just everything behind it. Just so detailed.
Yeah, this is what I love about last time Sal was on too. Everybody, if you're really into the kind of process or behind the scenes, from pencils to inks to colors, it's awesome that he breaks down and shows us this, because I love seeing the raw pencils. And again, I mean, tight pencils, tight, loose but tight, and then seeing the tight inks to the colors. I mean, the whole process is awesome. And I mean, Brett killed it on that. I mean, look at that.
No, he's amazing. It's just. I may be honest with you, it's intimidating for me, although you guys all like the finished product, hopefully, but it's
we love it.
There's always a fair amount of trepidation before you go into it. And then, he just allows for so much self-expression. His line is just leading you in so many different ways.
Yeah.
And you can just add the texture in there and lines, but he's got everything in the pencils. It's just like, for me, it's like the perfect balance in between, like being, it's just enough looseness to it without being loose at all. I don't know if that makes sense, because
it makes perfect sense.
That makes perfect sense.
Yeah, if it's too tight and you feel like you have to confine yourself to it, and it doesn't allow for a lot of that that expression that you want to. Yeah, and so here is,
just how it flows.
Yeah, the finished product right here, and it's just an amazing job.
Love me some green hair.
Yes, by Andrew, and I love all the little details that he tells me how he does this, but I don't understand any of the process or the colors. So I just love all these little things that he puts and adds as much, all the detail that he adds in the hair and
I
all
love
this
that.
stuff. And the process that he uses, I love the cut and grad. I know he uses a combination of stuff, but I love the Steve Furcow cut and grads,
Yeah.
and his colors are very similar to me. This reminds me a lot
Oh, the abs are fantastic.
of one of the God, I can't believe the cover is this. I think it's Ascension, or the palette that he used to use sometimes.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's wicked.
I'm thinking back up at that halo of hair. So that little white, the highlight right there, that halo, because it's like a halo shape. What
Mhm.
that conveys is that gives you volume.
Exactly.
Like it
This
gives
is what I love it so
volume.
much.
I
Yeah.
love that because it's like
It's-
gives that like big volume right here. It makes it look fuller. It does. It really does. Like how the light is hitting off of it, and it provides depth to like the darker pieces here as well. I hope.
Yeah, but the
hoping
color, that's
gorgeous.
awesome. But the colors that he chose, they would
beautiful.
work flat. It
Right.
would still give it some depth, and it would still have life. And so I love the palette that he uses. That he gets in here in the smoke.
Yeah.
Look at
Yeah.
all these tiny little,
Just subtle kind of.
yeah, how
Yeah.
he's cutting in. I don't know how he does it, but it looks like cutting grad to me. I can't really,
Yeah, no, that's awesome.
That's beautiful.
understand that process.
Real quick, everyone. Jimmy Reyes says, I'm off to bed. Tomorrow is Anna Havana and mine wedding anniversary. Happy anniversary,
anniversary,
Jimmy
guys.
and Anna.
Yes.
I hope you guys have a fantastic, wonderful day.
Happy anniversary.
Yes. It's amazing. Do something fun.
Yeah.
Take a vacation.
Let's see some other.
Oh,
I hope Brett doesn't get too mad at me, but I love this piece. Joe and I were talking about it earlier. This is a 300 cover. That I
Yeah.
think
Oh my God.
amazing job
so
on.
awesome. Yeah.
That is insane. I mean,
Brett,
God,
if you're listening, watching, remember you said you can do whatever. So please.
I feel he does like creatures and beasts and like all that kind of stuff. So amazing.
Oh
Look at
yeah,
all the little detail in the hair.
Look
I
at-
would be so intimidated having to ink that if I was you.
it
because
is.
all
I'm not
the
gonna lie. It is because you at least want to match his, the integrity that he put into it, and I can't call it anything else because it's just so beautiful and
Yeah.
he's just. I'm amazed at how fast he can be when he does all this work.
Oh,
Super
100%. Yeah, he jams stuff. I mean, we have an auction coming up on Saturday that he did a piece for and donated it to the auction, by the way. Shout out to Brett for doing that of a Spawn piece they did, and it looks fantastic. I can't wait to bid on it.
His stuff's
I
so
knew you'll be
dynamic.
the first one to bid on it. Like,
I'm gonna see how it does first. I'm gonna try to sneak in there, like throw a big bid in.
I'm curious. You have your inks to that, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're right here.
Could you? Okay.
Yeah, look at that.
Oh wow.
I love it.
So
Again,
the texture in it is incredible.
Yeah, when we
And
were
the
talking about
shadows,
this
too. That
before
is
we went live,
gorgeous.
and before you jumped on, Kayla, I was just, I was blown away. I love the texture, and I love the way you did the trees up there, keeping the energy and the movement coming off of that cliff there,
The snow
and
falling.
just the texture in the muscle structure of this wolf, this beast, the fur. Yeah, I love it.
Yeah,
love
he's
it.
awesome.
Like what is like a process for doing like the fur on that? I'm just so curious because there's a lot going on there, at least to my eyes. That's how it looks. I see everything from
So
like,
much detail.
yeah.
Well, what I normally do, like any ink that I'm, any page when I start by doing the panel borders first, and from there I'll start to try to spot like big chunks of blacks.
Okay.
And after I do that, then I start fleshing them out but that gives me like a sense of accomplishment. Like I'm
There you
actually
go.
getting somewhere. Uh, Seeing those big solid blacks. So,
Yeah.
for instance, in the arm, I would like in this arm here, I would just block out the arm, the big forms here, like in the fingers and stuff, the big
Yeah.
chunky shapes, because that's what it is. It's just you have to make these into shapes, and then from there, I'll just start using rendering and pulling out of blacks and things like that, do backgrounds and finish everything else, and then at the end, I will go over with white ink or an eraser, depending on where I'm at, and all these whites here that you can see the mouse, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yep.
You can see the mouse
So the
there.
cursor, so that
Yeah.
stuff is just is white over the the black and white art, or I may erase it. So and then we add some splatters. I don't really do that a lot. I didn't used to do that a lot, but I'm getting kind of more into it.
I like the
But
subtle
really,
splatter. It's
Yeah.
it's
yeah,
not overpowering. It's just enough to add energy to the piece, and enough to see that it's there, but not enough to like your eye is completely drawn to it. It's very subtly
and
done well.
and I also need that. Like I feel like it needs to call for it. Like the drawing needs to call for it, because you just put splatter for the sake of splattering stuff. I personally,
Right.
it looks good when other people do it, but I don't. It's not something that I like to do. But here in the snow, I think it fits. You can
Oh, I
get
love
pretty
that. Yeah.
even
Yeah.
so, even though
I just love how you
even though
broke up the yeah.
even if you're losing some of the line work and the gradation at the end, because at the end of the day it's just this snow pulverizing,
Yeah.
and just a little bit of that snow has to be on the figure of the wolf.
But to me,
And
it conveys the action a lot more that you did that. You can see the movement
just
within.
go, yes,
To Roy and Paulus in the chat. Yes, this is digitally inked.
yes.
Yep.
If anyone has any questions about the process or what I use or don't use, please feel free to ask, because that's really important to me. And I said this a
Sal,
lot when I was at the
what
conference.
did you use? what kind of what kind
It's
you
like you open
you
it
set
up.
yourself up for it. So it's what did you use when you were inking this digitally? Was there a certain patterns? Did you use one particular one? What did you
I
do?
use I use Clip Studio and
Use-
Procreate.
Okay.
I feel like, even though a lot of people like Clip Studio, I feel and this is just my personal experience with it, I think that it's a little bit more too mechanical. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? And to, like, as far as what you're gonna get out of stuff. But I probably use them 60-40, 70-30, and most of the time I'll be inking in Procreate, and then some of the stuff in Clip Studio. I don't use any of the stock pens for Procreate, because I really don't like any of them. For Clip Studio,
Mm.
the mapping pen is an amazing tool, and I use it a lot. So, I mean, you could use the mapping pen for
What
an
is a
entire
mapping
page.
pen? I'm curious. What is a mapping pen?
The mapping pen is just a name that is the mapping pen is just a name that is given to one of the stock brushes that
Okay.
you get with Clip Studio when you purchase it.
Hmm.
You know, so I would encourage anybody to get maybe Clip Studio on mobile if you have an iPad, because it doesn't cost a lot. It's maybe $5 to $10 a month. I think it's like $30 for the entire year. And for Procreate, at the time when I bought it, it was as a $10 purchase,
Okay.
lifetime purchase. But I think that
Oh, nice. Look at that.
any of those work. This
Oh,
is amazing. Like how
Hell yeah.
the
beautiful
colors are
colors.
just off the hook.
The colors
Um,
on this are absolutely beautiful, and I feel that everyone's elements show through on this.
yeah.
This colors is amazing, absolutely amazing.
I just love
Sal,
how, yes.
Desolate Soul Studios asked, what pen size and the Clip Studio size do you use for something like this?
Oh, well, it all depends on It all depends on what um, resolution and um, and how big your artboard is or your canvas is. I used to work at 11 by 17, which is actual comic book size, but I
Mhm.
found that I was since this is a much broader, bigger canvas. I was just like getting in there a little too much, and when I pulled out, then everything was washed out because the lines were too thin. So soon after that, I just decided to work on 8 by 12 at 600 DPI. So
Really? Okay.
every image that you see here, it's 8 by 12 at 600 DPI on
Huh.
Clip Studio. Or yes, because but you have to understand that when in terms of publishing, in terms of reproducing, I'll send you some prints, um,
Okay.
and you will see that just the prints. I've made prints before when I
Yeah.
used to, but the prints are just beautiful because every pixel that I put down is represented in the final product. I mean, you can see
Nice.
everything.
So it picks it all
Um,
up.
and those prints, I'll send you guys some prints, and you'll see
Yeah. Yeah. That'd be
why
awesome.
I'm a big advocate of digital inking, and I think it's the future over
A
time. I
lot
know
more
there's
and more people are doing digital inking now. That's for sure. Or Jacob asks, "How do you feel about Clip Studio moving to a subscription model next year?"
oh, is
I
that
didn't.
what's happening?
I didn't know that either.
It
Huh.
I
sounds like
didn't
that's
know that.
news to me. I didn't.
Well, see, here's the thing. I don't use Clip Studio. I don't use Clip Studio on my desktop. I use it only on the iPad, and that
Yeah.
always been a subscription model. It's I think they know that they're just going the way that Photoshop did, which
Yeah. True.
I regret. But Procreate is an amazing value. The only issue with Procreate that I have is that it doesn't have some of the tools that Clip Studio you know
Hmm.
has, because Clip Studio is primarily a manga comic book type
True.
app or
Yep.
program, whereas Procreate is more of, well, not more of, but it has those elements, but also is for painters, designers, and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah. Here's an interesting question that
Oh,
Bordeaux brought
yeah.
up. He said, "Any feelings on the AI art mid journey?" I know that's a hot topic right now. If you've been paying
Oof.
attention, Sal, to the AI art
Yeah,
that's being generated out there.
Mhm.
yeah, I've had someone made some comments on it during the convention, but I haven't been able to see any of that stuff. So I mean, I can't really make a comment until I actually see it. But
From
it sounds interesting and scary at the same time. Honestly, I'm not gonna lie.
from what I've heard, a lot of the argument is it it basically maps or borrows, like
It
it
does.
takes references from actually established art that it can find on the
Absolutely.
internet, and then takes that and makes a piece.
Yes.
So it comes out looking really awesome, and people are like, "Oh, that's really cool." But then when you actually dive into where they kind of grabbed, or where the AI kind of grabbed the sample from, it's actually taking real art from artists that have established work out there and putting stuff together. And
So
that's
obviously, there's all these sort of ethical issues,
a
Yeah.
100%.
but Joe, if you think about it, that's what we do in our minds
Ugh.
ourselves. You know what I mean?
I mean, that is true to a point. Yep, to a
Yeah.
point.
We're not actually taking the images, but we
I
are
was
in a
gonna say
sense.
that's the only difference right there. Yeah, is the AI is actually, let's say somebody typed in, there was an example somebody used for like a fantasy artist or fantasy art, and there was a really well-known artist. I didn't know him because I'm not really into that genre of art, but a lot of the AI that was generated um really looked heavily like this dude's art, and it was because they were sampling from that guy's art. So it's
Yeah, it raises
it's
all
interesting.
kinds of interesting ethical, questions. If it were ever to be used uh, on a commercial basis.
I mean, it's crazy to me because I know that I worked at Comic Con once, and there was someone that was selling prints, and they had to pack up and leave because basically the
Hmm.
prints that they had made, they had either took pictures and digitally painted over them, or whatever the case, something that they did. But basically all of their art that they had, although it looked different, it
wild.
was other people's art that they had just like colored or positioned things differently. So, and they had to pack up and leave.
That's interesting.
And that's kind of what the AI is doing.
And that's
So
kind of what the AI is doing. So
We need to have
me,
the AI pack up and leave.
yeah.
I don't think AI will take over though. And the reason why is because with the AI art, if you look at it, there's things that can't be like the hands. There's certain things that don't make sense when they produce it, like of physical features of people. And also too, a lot of it doesn't have the particular emotion that strikes you, like when a person create something, at least in my opinion.
No, I totally understand it, but it's also like for me, it's really scary because I was talking to a lot of people at the con, pros and aspiring comic book artists, and there was a time where I felt that I would never ink again, and that there will never be a program that would allow us to emulate what we could do on paper with a pen and quill and a brush.
And that might technology that might very well be, it's I think that when you look at stuff like this, there's a human element that I think, in my opinion, cannot be matched right now. Maybe in the future,
maybe ever.
Yeah, maybe ever. I would venture, in my opinion, personally, to say ever, because as great as technology is, as great as computers are, there's no matching the human imagination. And look, you just look at stuff like this. The cover for Artist Elite 5 or whatever this is. It's just amazing. The amount of stuff that's going on here, the positioning of all the different characters. Look at all the shards of glass or whatever it is that's just flying all over the place.
Yeah,
like that is the phenomenal aspect of the human brain, creating something from nothing. Right there. Obviously there's references and things that people see throughout their lives that does this, but this is the ability of the human creation. And I just unmatched.
It's just Brett's total genius, because I'm not a very creative person myself, and to see that someone can tell a story consistently and come up with all these different scenarios and draw them, and everything that he draws feels fresh. You would think that at some point you'd be like, oh, okay, he's rehashing that cover for that thing and this thing and that other thing. But no, everything he does feels fresh and new to me. Even more one page, one panel, even more dynamic, and then than the rest. So yeah, I think you're right. It's going to be very hard to be able to replicate that by an AI.
No, I agree.
Oh, I agree, Bordeaux, for sure.
I agree. You know what I will say too about Brett Booth, and I say it all the time. He hasn't peaked. His stuff just continually, to me, looks better and better and better. He hasn't reached a point where he's peaked, and this is it for him. Like everything that I see, it just gets better. Yeah,
I feel like he's entering his prime. These are going to be the best. The next 5 to 10 years are going to be. I don't know if he wants to keep the same output that he's had, because it's insane. But I think we're about to see the best out of him. I mean, you're consistently seeing best out of him with his gunslinger Spawn stuff, and obviously this. I feel really fortunate to be a part of of this project with him.
Yeah, I think that, and I've said this before, just in general with artists, that when you can tell when someone's inspired, as good of an artist as Brett is. I mean, you can tell when he is absolutely having fun and inspired with something. And the Gunslinger Spawn stuff looks great, but the Lost Servant Prince stuff looks inspired.
And the story is phenomenal too, because it's not a traditional like superhero kind of story. It's like
Hail Eric.
there's some fantasy elements to it that I really love. At least I picked up on.
It's a really cool name, honestly. If you think about it, I think he had another version of it, and it was equally as good. The Last Serpent Prince,
Yeah.
which I think is amazing. Anyway,
Here's
and look, from Andrew's perspective, he took the time to knock out every single piece of glass in the piece, and it just adds to. You can just tell when people care about stuff.
Yeah, yep. That's what I was going to say. Just in general, like the entire team you guys have on this book, you can see is inspired and you're having fun and you care about it. Going back to Brett real quick with this, what's cool about this is, Brett is really big into anime and manga and stuff like that. So there's elements in this book that I think are going to do very well just in general because it crosses over, not necessarily in style of art, obviously, but just I'm talking about like maybe storytelling wise and just the fantasy feel within the stuff that I think is going to be really fun with this book when it gets to its own title and not sharing space with other stories and just is straight issue 1, let's go. Yeah, I'm having eyegasm. Yeah, 100%.
The communication between you all must be insane. I feel that you all must communicate together for the pieces to come out this great. Like there has to be like a particular, I feel like, bond between the people working together to put out pieces as consistently good.
Yeah, let me find another couple of pieces.
Darko D13 says, are all these pieces Sal is showing from new projects? A lot of the stuff, this is the Lost Serpent Prince right here, guys. If you haven't heard it, it's an artist elite book. It's issue 5 is out right now. I think Brett's story is in issue 1, issue 3, and issue 5 as it continues. Yep, the odd numbers. And so some of the other stuff Sal is showing, I think there's maybe some other projects, but this is Brett's newest thing he's working on besides Gunslinger Spawn right now.
Yes. And this is great.
Yeah. This is amazing. The colors, and I think Andrew told me that Brett loves purple, and I just love how it put it all together here.
I will tell you, purple. I don't care what anyone says. Purple is great in comics. It's great visually for the eyes.
I agree.
Yeah, always has been.
I also like what you can do with purple too, with mixing it within the blacks and the blues, and I also think that purple contrasts really well with other colors, like green and purple. Like it looks really well to the eye. Certain things like this actually has a lot of, there's black tones here. There's the purple tones going into some of the blue black into the hair here. The flow is great.
I like how Andrew he doesn't have things that are just solid black in there. Like he's kind of pushed the color over the black a little bit, so it's not just so harsh right there. Like that's cool. I like that effect.
It's really cool.
This is a really badass piece.
Oh,
that is amazing.
I love how this turned out.
Yes,
the detail. Show your breast pencils first.
What is this one for?
I'm assuming that I'm at liberty to talk about it because it was out on Twitter already, so they share the cover.
I figured if they already put it out in the universe, it should be all right.
And
oh man, that's awesome.
I think it's a video game that is in development, but they're going to release the comic books. Release it out as a comic book first to draw interest into the property and to get it out there in people's minds, just promoting it through the comics.
Yeah, Muttman said, "Zoom in."
Okay, we'll do. And this stuff is just, I loved working on this kind of stuff.
Oh man, look
at that! Oh, you got the background.
Yeah, finding all kinds of different ways of.
I love how Brett's pencils are. There's a sense of looseness, but it's just everything is there. The energy's there. It's also tight, even though there is some loose stuff to it. The detail is insane.
Like we were talking about earlier, for me, it's the perfect blend. That's really, if it gets any looser than this, and it's not as much fun for me because I have to figure it out more. If it's tighter, it's not a lot of room for self-expression. So for me, it's just like the perfect blend of everything. It's everything that I ever wanted to ink.
That's
a happy
awesome.
medium for you. It's
Yeah.
And hopefully, you know, it shows like the dedication and the desire, you know, shows up in the final product when you guys see the inks.
Oh, it does. I mean,
it's just so amazing.
it's not just because you're a guest on the show, but I mean, like, 100% honest. Like, you guys jam very well together. I mean, I love Brett's original pencils. I love seeing his raw stuff and then seeing it inked, seeing it tightened up and inked by you. It just, you do his pencils absolute justice. You add stuff that needs to be added. You keep the feel, you keep the energy, and it just becomes, like I said, a collaboration between the two of you.
art flow.
Yeah, it's absolutely beautiful, gorgeous.
And then like this is a really good. I mean, everybody has a different tastes and stuff like that, but sensibilities and all of that. But for me, you know, I just love this piece. It's the whole project. You know, it's really nice. So let's see if I can show you some of the inks.
Paulus asked, what kind of brushes does Sal use for splatter digitally? I have several from Clip Studio, but I don't like any of them really.
I use the stock
oh, look at that.
Clip Studio brushes for splatter. You just have to play around with the thickness of the and the density of the circles or figures that make the splatter. So just play around with these are the stock brushes. I haven't found I have not found a better splatter than the stock brushes from Clip Studio.
Okay.
So this right here, this is just your average run of the mill stock brush from Clip Studio. You just play with the density and the size of the particle. That's all you have to do, depending again on what resolution and the canvas that you're working on. So play with those two elements, the particle density and the size of the particle. That's what's going to give you the different variations. Just play with those two elements, and you will get different results depending on what you're looking for.
Hey, before you go any farther, can you zoom in on his thigh a little bit more?
Yeah, I was just going to say the same.
I just want to point this out. Whatever technique this is called, where it's not cross hatching because you're not going over lines, you're doing the squiggly little lines. I've seen that pop up. Brett Adelso, you do it. I've seen a couple other artists do it as well. I absolutely love it. I mean, I incorporate go up on his thigh. Go up on his thigh, on the top of his thigh. Go up a little bit more.
It's that squiggle thing. It's like a squiggle.
Yeah, right over on the left side, at the top on the left. It's just these zigzag patterns. Yep. It's not necessarily cross hatching, but it just gives that. And I love it. I love it. It's ever since I saw Brett start doing it, I've added that into my own work as well.
I think it's Greg Capullo. You know,
is that where it generated from? Okay,
I think so, because that's when I kind of first started seeing it. I don't know, Brett maybe might have came up with it, or
so loopy and
I love it.
You can see it there on the pockets. To me, it's like a squiggle. I saw it. You could see it more pronounced in, I forget what piece it was that you showed, but you had done it in white highlighting.
Oh, I see.
So it's
I feel like it's an
it's like very loose. See that? It almost reminds me of like something a graffiti artist would do.
It's like it's like a new take on Scott Williams. See the things that I'm circling right now, his squiggly lines. I think people at Top Cow, they used to call it teepees.
Okay, that makes sense.
We used to call it something else. I can't even remember what it was, but I can't remember the name of what we used to call it. But the colors on this, they just put everything together. They're gonna blow your mind.
Yeah, I would say with this amount of line work, the colors are really gonna make everything separated and pop so good. I can't wait.
So is this something, because you said something about like the gritty stuff?
Oh yeah.
Like to me, that looks gritty. The inks look gritty and they look good.
Oh yeah, this is gritty. Yes.
Yeah, I love gritty. It. I'm sorry. I love the gritty. Give me gritty. Give it to me.
The colors on this are amazing.
The colors are inspiring. Yeah, I mean,
That just
look at this volcano.
Oh,
right
nice.
here.
Look at that.
oh, I love
Yeah.
that. Look at the sky
And
behind.
yeah, he lightly knocked out the background so that it's on a different plane altogether. You
Mhm.
know, I don't know what he was thinking. That maybe the smoke, you know, there's a curtain of smoke, then it would impair your visibility ever so slightly.
Mm.
But if you see this like big stratosphere type building in the background, it's knocked out, and it's just like you can still see the inks, and
Yep.
you know every part of the inks is there. So to me, I'm happy. And just this like the effect right here
It's beautiful.
on the volcano, the top of the volcano. You know,
Yeah. That's great.
that's just amazing. The smoke,
Wow.
all that stuff. This is one of my favorite pieces too. I don't know why, you know, you just kind of not necessarily the best, I guess, work that you've done, but you know, because I don't know how you feel about the inks, but for
I
me,
I
love all
love
of
the
it.
the
eggs.
way
The ink
all
is
of this,
great.
the way it turned out, it's just for me, it's just awesome. I love to have this poster, or you know, if I was a little kid, I'd love to have this poster hanging on my wall.
I love textures, so I like the gritty feel of the inks. And I know just from being an artist, you're probably never going to be as satisfied with your stuff as other people looking at it, you know. But yeah, I absolutely love this. Love it.
Yeah, it was really good for me to go to the convention because a lot of people came up and were very, very kind to me.
Mhm.
A lot of pros, and it was, you know, satisfying because I've been away for so long, and even though I'm not really in, you know, the 10% that I'm in, I'm
Right.
really, really super enjoying it because I can't ever. I have a lot of other commitments, you know, a family and you know my businesses that I run, so it would be really
Yeah.
difficult for me. And I don't know that I that I only did a monthly book once in my life, and or twice. I did an issue run on Fathom with Alejandro
Fathom.
Garza,
Okay.
and the authority with Dwayne Turner. And let me tell you, with the amount of detail that Dwayne Turner put on the books, you know, similar to Brett, and the output was the pages just kept coming in. That was a grind. I know that I'm assuming that no one does you know comic books um on a monthly basis now. You mean at least on a 4 week turnaround? But that was kind of a grind.
I bet.
I have a
Yeah.
lot of
Yeah.
respect and admirations. Oh, just a little bit. Look at this detail. This is gonna blow your mind. Look at
Look
that
at that.
detail
Ah.
My
in
hand.
that hand.
Now, is this something that you find that you would not be able to get that much detail if you were doing a traditional inking because you're
No,
able
I
to
was talking
zoom in,
about
or what?
I'm talking about the detail in Andrew's, you
The
know,
coloring.
the coloring, the
Yeah.
Oh, I got you. I got you.
yeah. I
But
mean,
still, when you the difference between traditional inking and digital inking, do you feel like you are able to do more detail because you can zoom in farther, or do you try not to do that because you don't want to get sucked too much into noodling something out that when you actually zoom out, kind of gets lost? Because I
well,
found that when I've done just some digital inks on myself, just messing around, I'll spend a lot of time thinking it looks great, and I pull it out. I'm like, oh, why did I do all that? There's a lot of little stuff in there you're not going to see.
yeah, that's the I like to zoom in, and so it took me some time, but you have to think about um you have to think in terms of what your canvas size is. And I think one of the smartest questions that we had a while back was I think it was in the last podcast. It's about the brush size. So
Yeah,
if I'm inking at you know at 8 by 12 on Clip Studio, I'm probably going to have my mapping pen at, you know, on the 15 to 25 range, because it's not going to be too thin where we're going to have some of those issues that you were talking about, and it's not
yeah,
also going to be really thick where it's going to be like just kind of overpowering and, you know, gross, because I don't nobody ever really likes thick inks, you know.
right.
Do you flip your pieces as well
Oh, all the time. And
all the time?
that's, you know, that's one of the reasons why I really love digital inking. It's that you're not constrained by the tool. If you
Mm-hmm.
think about a quill like a hunt 102 nib, you learn to kind of push it or pull it in one direction, but you will find as you're inking digitally, now you can act more like a penciler. You can move and pull the pencil whichever way possible. You know what I'm saying? Back and forth and all around. If you threw a stroke in a certain direction with a nib, with a Hunt 102 nib, and then you reverse course, you'd break the nib. You know what I'm saying? But with the
Gotcha.
digital tool, you can do that. I don't know. I'm not sure if that makes sense, but I know it does to you, Joe, right? Like having
Yeah.
ink and stuff with digital tools.
And I think
Yep.
too, like the digital, like why you're so great at digital inking is because of the knowledge that you have from the traditional inking. You know, I think a lot of the people that ink digitally, because I would never look at your ink work and think that it's digital just by looking. Do you know what I'm saying? Like I would never ever look at it and think you digitally inked it unless you know until you told me. So I
Yeah,
think
there
it's
were
all that experience from working with the traditional materials that
there were a lot of people that that told me that at the convention that I would like Sal, you know, pros that came and talked to me and they said, "Well, I had no idea that you could do this in Procreate and Clip Studio." And it wasn't like it was a process because I was when the pandemic started, my daughter got an iPad and I started drawing like cringy pictures and portraits of my family, you know, and I would talk to Brad and say, "Hey man, can you just please send me like some pencils of whatever it is that you're working on." Um, so he would send them and I'd get like a panel done or whatever. But what was happening in the background is I was learning how to use the tools and developing my own tools, you know, with
Yeah.
painting and drawing. This is a really nice piece. This is a recreate. I don't know if people have already seen this or if I showed it last time, but I'm gonna show it anyway,
Yeah.
I guess.
I think you did
I
show
think it's
this
been out there. Yeah. But yeah, this is
before I
Yeah,
saw it.
this
a
is a
backlash
commission by
cover.
yeah, from the guys at the Wildstorm Universe Facebook group.
Yep.
So I wanted to give it a shout out to Angel and those guys.
Yeah.
But
Shout out to
let's
them.
see, yeah. And this is what I was talking about. The looseness and the tightness of the pencils and kind of how I kind of wanted to pull it back a little bit and see what it would look like. Because if you look at
I
this,
see what
this
you're
is
saying. Yeah.
this is super gritty and you know out there, heavily influenced by whims and you know and from the
Yeah.
stuff that when I came back when I saw Adelso stuff.
Yep.
So it's got a lot of that, more of that feel to it. No, and if you see it, it's just pure energy and
Yeah, I
Yeah.
love
power.
it.
I think that's why I like the
I
gritty.
love that.
That's why I
Like
like gritty inks because of the energy involved.
And there's just all kinds of stuff going on in there. Um, so I kind of wanted to experience like the
wow.
other end of the spectrum because I didn't really want to get too far that way into it. But this is a really cool,
Oh, I love it. I
you know,
love the
I love
texture in the background.
and then just look at the storytelling of it. The storytelling aspect of it. It's really super cool. Um,
Yeah.
whenever I think about it, if you could, and when I look at a comic book, if you could have, because it's a visual medium, you know, in
Right.
spite of what anybody wants to say, it's if you could just tell the story and look how well he does it here.
Yep.
You know, you can
He's a great
almost,
storyteller.
yeah, you can almost feel her angst. You can almost see, you can almost have her thoughts, and you know, he delivers it in a very dynamic way. The way he sets the scene and stuff. So it's like this is a mini. This is a movie in one page. You know, you have your
Yeah.
beginning, middle, and in one in
That's a
one.
difference. That's a difference
Yes,
Um.
between
let
a
me.
good comic book artist and a great comic book artist. If you are able to see the story, I remember we looked at some Bernie Wrightson stuff
Mhm.
a few weeks ago, and Bernie Wrightson, he's an artist that you don't need the words. The story is already conveyed through the artwork, just like
Yep.
these pages are doing here. So
Yeah.
you can already tell what this story is. The words are just in like an addition
Absolutely,
to it.
totally agree.
What I love about
And
this
so for,
page. I
yeah,
was
so
just gonna
for
say
this,
what I love about. Go ahead. You go.
no, go for it, go for it.
I was just gonna say what I love about this page, storytelling wise. I love how you go from the panel above this. That's just like this really cool action in your face piece. And Brett does a subtle thing where he pulls the camera tight on his eyes, right? Because he's noticing the character behind him. But instead of drawing it in a different way, it is very cinematic or almost anime-esque, right? Where you just do this super tight view on just one eye as he's noticing what's going on, and he just throws the arm in the next panel to get the dude. Yeah, it's just great storytelling. And again, you don't need word bubbles to know what's going on in this scene. It just flows so good.
Yeah, I really think that I don't know if it takes him a long time to come up with this, or if it just, you know, or if it just appears to him, whatever. But it just works out really great. If he really thinks about it and he has to, you know, and if it's a process that takes a long time, then, you know, awesome for his dedication and desire. If it comes out, you know, if it just comes out of him and it just appears to him, that even fantastic, you know. He just And this is what I was talking about. I wanted. Yes, go ahead. I'm so sorry.
No, Desolate Soul had a couple questions for you, but we can wait until you're finished with this, and then.
Yep, that's what I was waiting. I was waiting for that too.
Yeah, so I wanted to make it a little bit more, a little bit tighter.
You know, I love you, Eric. Eric is a fantastic letterer, by the way, and that's why I said you don't even need the word bubbles for this or word balloons for this.
That is amazing.
So just wanted to keep. I wanted to keep the same energy and the texture, but I also wanted to get away a little bit of this from the scratchiness of it. So I still put textures like in the back of the mask and.
Could you zoom? Could you zoom on that mask and face part?
Yeah, sure.
Like, yeah.
Wow. There you go. Look at that.
And then it's like the piece of the face. Like if you go down towards that face. Wow, that's so freaking cool.
Yeah, he's a master, definitely.
I love that.
Yes, chest hair. That's what I noticed too. Just a little bit of chest hair, attention to detail. I like it.
No matter what I do, like this is my attempt of trying to make my chest hair like really super loose but it always, like when you zoom out, it just always looks like really, really super, you know, clean when you pull out of it. For whatever reason, it still looks like a pattern.
No, it does.
I don't know. Yeah, I have to. I don't know. I have to love the chest when other inkers do it, and it's like so free flowing. And I try to do that, but at the end of the day, when you pull out, it just looks like, you know, like a pattern, like a grad.
Drawing that kind of hair to me it's tough to make it look correct. I got to address this in the chat though. Cullen says, "What's really great about tonight's stream or show? Joe isn't going on and on about how much he loves Mark.
You
missed the beginning of the show because I absolutely did.
You missed it. Did. It wouldn't be a show if he didn't go on about Mark.
And before we get going any further, Desolate Souls did ask, so when you say 8x12, do you resize Brett's work to fit the size, or does Brett do 8x12?
So that was a continuing question to the first one. There's a first part of the question.
Yeah. So what I will do is I will create a board or a new canvas. I mean, I have my presets, but I'll get a 8x12 canvas at 600 DPI, and then I'll just drop it into drop Brett's image into that canvas, and it'll be resized to 8x12. Yes. Yeah. I could have just said yes, right? But I guess I had to say that.
Oh, okay. I read that wrong. So then he had another question was, how do you resize an 11x17 to an 8x12? So.
I think you just answered it.
Oh, he did? Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, I just sneezed and like couldn't hear. Yeah. I sneezed and couldn't hear what he said. So. Yeah.
So that's, if you think about it, 11 by 17. It's like it's 8x12. It's pretty much the same dimension, so it works because I haven't figured that out, but it's worked so far.
I would say it should. I assume it should shrink down pretty good and just fit there.
Yeah, it shrinks to fit perfectly. I can't remember how I figured that out, but you know.
Thank you, my man. Marco Sharpo said, "Gotta love the whip action in that frame. Damn, I missed the wicked edgy 90s. Yes." Yeah, this is comic books to me, everybody. Like this is absolutely.
Oh wow!
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think we
Some
looked at
people
this
show,
last
I
time
gotta throw
too.
some pop
Hell
cut
yeah.
reference.
Yeah, we did look at that last
Hell
time.
yeah.
But
Oh, you did
still,
look at
that-
this last time? Oh, okay. my
Yeah,
bad.
you brought this up, but I'm
I
glad you
believe
did
at the end.
because of all the recreation covers that Brett did over this year, I this was my favorite, obviously, and I thought he did just a phenomenal job. I mean, both you guys did a phenomenal job on this. And I
Yeah,
know
Thank you.
last time you said you didn't try to look at what Bat did because you didn't
No,
want
I
to
didn't. I
be
purposely
influenced.
didn't pick it up because Brat. Oh my god, I'm so sorry, Bat.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry. Oh my goodness. So,
Don't worry, he's not
Bat,
listening.
yeah, Bat is one of my favorite top 3 anchors of all time for me. So
Say
I'll just go ahead and tell you he's in number 2. So he's my second favorite anchor of all time. So I purposely, I didn't want to look at his stuff. I didn't want to see what he put down because I know that everything I did would pale in comparison to what he would do. So rather than do that, I just wanted to have my own take on it, and I'm pretty happy with the results. Got in there a little.
Yeah, it looks fantastic. I mean, some of your stuff reminds me of Bat a little bit, like you
Yeah,
said, with the grittier stuff you do, kind of reminds me of little Weems, a little Badish. Not some of some of your style as well, which is a great thing.
well, that's what we all are, I guess, an amalgamation of all the influences that we've had
100%.
over the years, experiences and all.
Yeah,
Let me see if
100%.
I have anything else.
Yeah, but it's uniquely you. You can look and tell when you ink something, it's you definitely like you take the inspiration, from whoever you were inspired by or whoever you're around, what you learn from them, and then you take that and you develop that into your own technique and use
Absolutely. Yes,
So-
Well,
absolutely.
that's what I love about art. We're all influenced by so many different artists, but when we develop our own style, you can see influences in our work, but at the same time, you can see the unique style that you are. I feel the same way with my art as well. You can see all the influences that I draw from, but you can also tell that it's my work when you see it, and that's what I absolutely love about comic book art.
I also selected this piece so to
Yeah.
kind of give people a little bit, because it's such a big piece and it occupies the vast majority of the canvas or the page or whatever. Right? You can take a closer look of on a macro on a bigger scale of the things that I'm doing
in the
Yeah.
there
face.
when I get there with the rendering. Maybe it's just in. So this is what I'm trying to do. Just vary the line weight and get in there and use some of those elements and lines that you guys are talking about.
Yeah.
So what is like? So when you say you
Love
want
it.
to get in there and you're working with the line weights and everything.
Oh, let me show you what I mean by getting in there. So,
Yeah, can you?
like,
Yeah,
so
can you?
There we go.
There
if
we
you have
go.
the pencils
that's me.
there,
Okay.
these are the pencils for the drawing, and I want to think about what I mean by getting in there is like how am I going to interpret lines? What am I going to do? Pulling out of blacks and things like that. So, if you, for instance, take a look at that,
Hmm.
it's just gonna because I can't really do line for line what the penciler did. I guess some people
Right.
could do that, but then it would lose a lot of the. I have to be spontaneous myself, and
Right.
when I'm creating, because otherwise it's just not going to be. Um, you know, you have to add line weights and depth and style and it changes. And I just want to give people a closer look of what I mean by getting in there. The jagged and
Yeah.
wings like type of lines, and then Brett. I mean, I think that's a pretty accurate because they were the 3 biggest influences in my life. Scott Williams, um, obviously Bat and Weems, probably in that descending order. Then I also like a lot of elements of the stuff that Sandra does, and
Yes.
Mm.
well, Alex
Yeah, it's
Garner as well.
fantastic.
I probably shouldn't say this. I would probably say maybe Williams, Bat, Gardner, and then Weems, in that order. and it's not that I necessarily ink like them, but
Right.
some of those elements of the stuff that I had attempted to do, emulate, or that I liked, became a combination of the stuff that I do now. So
There you go, Colin. That's your answer for the top
Yes,
3.
right, yeah. There's something interesting too that I notice a lot. So in places where you think like in a place, I'm trying to think of how to describe this without sounding like an idiot right now. So if you look like around the eyes, like the eyes are initially around and there are more straighter lines there. And then if you look at pieces like where you would think there would be straight lines, they're more curved lines, how it makes I'm trying to think of the proper way to explain this and my brain is not working, but something that I'm seeing like around the rounder shape, I see some straighter lines. And then around shapes that are straighter, I see more curved lines and what that does to the piece.
Yes. Well, you just got to go with the flow of the form. You know what I mean? And just kind of accentuate what the penciler has put there.
Oh, look
And
at
there's
that.
a lot of different types of, and I think that's where people that are inking, I think they get caught up in being successful and doing something. But if you look at this, there's a lot of different variations of
Yeah,
you
Yeah.
lines.
of grouping of lines and applications of variation of the same technique, and that's what I think gives it, more of a natural random thing, because everything in the universe is random. You know what I mean? The
Right.
stars in the sky are random.
Yes.
I remember that's like one of the first things that Jim Lee told me. I had a panel with black and stars with it, and I just grabbed like the back of a pen and put the stars down with by putting white ink
Yeah.
on it, and the stars were just like really spaced out evenly. It's like, look, that's not how it is. That's not how you make things look organic and natural. Things must be random. And that's what I try to do that, but keep some of the elements in the pencils. One of the things that Scott Williams told me about is, he thinks that you're only as good as the weakest part of your inks, which is like a really
True.
Interesting.
yeah, but you can sense like that's the kind of commitment that he had. And when he shared to me, it was like, oh my God, I stink.
So
But
what would you consider the weakest part of your inks then?
the weakest part
I'm
of my
just
inks, let
curious.
me see.
I mean, because
Great
that's
question,
interesting.
Kayla.
I've never heard anyone say anything like that. So no wonder, Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's probably, like a question for somebody else, maybe if there was something that I really didn't like about my stuff, it would be the lack of consistency, from one
Okay.
piece to another. Like, I don't know that a lot of people can do what I just showed you, like a really different approach to things,
Yeah.
and so I wish I could find a middle ground or just stick to one end of the spectrum or do that. But I think like if you look at this piece,
Mhm.
it's like really, really clean.
It looks
And
very
Yeah.
yeah.
it's clean. Like if you look at the hair, but
I
that's
love
the problem that I have, that to me, the penciler and the artist, this dictates too much to me what ends up being the final product, rather than you have someone that very distinctively inks in a certain way. Like if you have Danny Mickey ink something, you're not going to confuse him for anybody else. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I wish I had that like Adelso Corona and Sandra Hope, and that I wish that maybe people don't see it that way when they see my stuff, but that's how I think of it. In terms, I wish I could be a lot more consistent.
I get what you're
And
saying.
yeah,
But I mean, everything I see
It's
looks
good.
like you adapt to the penciler, and everything I see is good.
Versatile.
Like seeing this is nice to see something other than Brett. See you
Yeah.
work on something other than Brett, to just see kind of how you brought this artist out with this style. It's a lot cleaner of a piece, obviously because of the artist, but it still looks great. Like everything is there. The line works great. The line weight is awesome.
Is
Yeah.
there a way that you shift your, like when you're inking, like is there a way that
I'll be right back.
you could explain to people like how you're shifting your line weights from like the thick to the thin lines to the thin to the thicker lines that might be helpful to them if they're digitally inking?
Like technique wise, it's
Yeah,
just
like
about
a technique wise. Yeah.
it's all about pen pressure, you know. It's just really all about pen pressure and thick to thin, just like it just has to be the reason why I really love the digital tool is that it behaves in pretty much the same way that 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 a quill would. So and if you're throwing a line from thick to thin, then you apply pressure and then you release pressure. And if you're going to do the opposite, go from thin to thick when you throw a line, then obviously you have less pressure and then you add more pressure. And so um pressure, non-pressure, that's what it's all about really when you're putting lines down.
The amount of pressure that you use within that.
Yeah, the amount of pressure that you use and then your technique up, down, and all that stuff. But really it's it's about what is in your mind already, that you have to put it down. It's not really about the brush. Like I said, you can you can use the stock brush, um but it's really all about how you're applying the pressure and the control, you know, in your line. That's what it's going to that's what's going to end up working out in the end. You know what I mean? That's what it's all about. And you add the thicknesses, you can go over the line, you can cut the line, you can go over it with white, you can erase it, you can do, whatever, and then you can do pretty much anything that you can do. It's not restrictive. Instead of being restrictive, the medium, it opens up to different ways. You have an infinite amount of, you know, patterns and cross hatchings and textures that you can use, in your backgrounds. And in the old days, we used to have to use the zipatone, and we used to have to use the zipatone and
What's
cut it
a
out.
zipatone? I've never
The
heard.
I
I've
always
never
hated the
heard
zipatone, to be honest with you.
that. Can you
Yeah,
explain? I don't know what the zipatone is. I actually
Let-
do not know. So
oh, wait, let me show you what it is. And I think it's one
Okay.
of these colors because I see a lot of people do it, and just like anybody else, I want to do stuff like the cool kids do it.
Nice.
So
You
I'm
are
old
a
school.
cool kid, Sal.
All the cool kids are doing it, so I must do it, or I'm not going to be just as cool. And it can overpower everything, but lots of people use it. So zipatone, I don't have a black and white for this page, but I can explain it here. Oh, it has to drop into Photoshop, so my bad. Open with.
Sorry, I had to ask because I've never
No,
heard of that
no.
terminology, and I don't know.
Oh,
and
really?
Maybe it's something I've seen before, but I'm
Oh, I'm
not
sure you've seen it.
sure.
Oh, you've seen it.
You've
But
I
absolutely
just
seen it.
never knew the name of it, but I'm all for learning what this
Oh.
is.
Would you look at that?
okay, so see
Oh.
these this collection of
Lines and the dots there.
the dots. The dots.
Yeah. Okay.
So the zipatone was it was used a lot in illustration in the 60s and 70s.
Yes.
Yeah, for sure.
So it's a film. Like think of it as a transparent adhesive film.
Okay.
that
Now
you-
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, so you can put it on top of whatever you want. Like people use it on faces, and
Mhm.
sometimes people use I'm waiting for a person to ink everything with zipatone, like the entire.
I never knew what it was called. I never
Yeah.
ever knew what it was called. So, okay.
Well, in the old days, I'm sure there's tons of
Zipatone.
names for that. So in the old days, you would have to, get that film and then decide where you're going to put that, layer it over the board, and then you would have to cut it out with an X-Acto knife.
With an example.
So
Yeah.
and then you pull it out, like you would pull it out of, like, if you wanted in this if you wanted it all over this cloak, or in the hood. You would put it over the hood, and then you would cut it out, and then you would peel the rest of it out, and then you could even get in there with the same knife and add more texture by scraping it with the knife.
Oh, I never even knew there was like a process to that. I literally thought someone was just going through it and just,
Yeah, but now you can just you have an infinite amount of zipper tones and combinations of textures and everything else. So you can just drop it into a layer or make a selection and then drop it into that area, or just draw it on top of someone's face and then erase it out of, all the areas that you don't want it out of. So that's what I'm saying. There's an infinite amount of possibilities.
Old Dirty Fatty in the chat said Toth did a total zip-a-tone with Batman. And had a question from Paulus Art. Says, does Sal generally push or pull lines? I tend to throw them out rather than pull them inward. Not sure which has greater control for me.
I do both. I throw the lines and I pull the lines and I squiggle the lines. It's a bit of everything, man. I think I probably, people at the con ask me a lot about the process, especially young fans, about the process of what I do. And, that's really that's one of the most important moments for me. Like I was saying before, because I think I was really fortunate that Jim saw enough in me and that Brett put up with like my early stuff. But I think I'm probably going to start a YouTube channel or do more tutorials on Instagram, because it's really, I don't envision myself doing a lot of this or for a very long period of time, because it's really time consuming and it requires a lot of dedication and it takes a lot of time. But I want to help people. If I can shorten someone's learning curve and I can make it easier for them.
Right.
I'm pretty sure that these few words that we've spoken over like the last couple hours will be able to help and inspire people. There's a couple of pros that came to my table and poured over the images and couldn't believe that they were digital inks. So I mean, it's not that my inks are any special than anybody else. It's just it's the fact that a lot of people are not, a lot of professionals are not doing it because they could do better work, that I'm doing. It's just that, like, I think we're like in a transition period, and the more top inkers that make that transition, the better. And that's what excites me. Like, what is coming next? Is it just the pencilers inking themselves? Because I really think that honestly, that's the future in the end. Because we're gonna have a new generation of artists that are gonna growing up penciling and inking themselves, and looking up to people that potentially pencil and ink themselves. So, if that's the future, I don't know. But it's just exciting because the medium can take you in so many different ways, and you'll always have traditional, and people always want to hold the original artwork. But the thing that's the drawback. The drawback with the original artwork is that if you have a digital file, you can make 10,000 million copies that have the same quality as the digital work that you put down on paper, and you could not do that with because if you're gonna get really, really picky with it, the digital, this is just, when you print something that's digital, is a digital representation of everything that you put down. It's an actual representation of everything that you put down. So you will see it when you get some of these images that I'm about to send you. The prints that I'm going to share with you, it's really quite striking. I can't forget the first time I went to Kinko's, because I don't own a printer, and was curious about what the prints would look like. They're really quite nice, and they have that little film of black, but nothing's better than Jim Lee's and Bat's original Scott Williams's inks. But in the absence of that, I'm just saying
Yeah.
there's something really cool about um and just kind of going dialing it back a little bit, and when we were talking about great inkers and influences and stuff like that, some of the greatest moments that I've ever had, as an artist, and um, I mean, what it's like to be inspired by artists like Mark and Jim and everybody else, but
Yeah.
in the same way, I'm inspired by Bats and Scott stuff, but like some of the coolest moments in my life as an inker and as an artist are from going to Top Cow or Wildstorm and looking at Bats and
Oh,
Joe's inks, because those things are striking. They're so beautiful. The combination of inks that whatever it is that I think he told me he at one point he was using Black Magic
mm,
and Koinor, and I met Marco who used to work with Joe Weems at the con, and he told me that at some point they were using some other, you know, medieval concoctions that they were coming up with, it, but that make you can attest to that, right? Like Joe Weems inks, the way he mixes the ink is just so striking when you get
oh,
that
it's
original.
amazing.
Yeah, it's just
The
amazing.
the original the original pages I've got back for Reaper Destroyer from Weems, the ones that he's inked,
Beautiful.
are absolutely gorgeous in person. I mean, just stunning, stunning in person. Like when he would send me the scanned versions, the cleaned up versions, and I get to look at them, was always fantastic. But actually, when I got to hold them in my hand and feel the inks, just feel everything, and just see the work on the paper, because he inked right over my original pencils. It was just unbelievably a different experience. Different experience seeing it in person.
Yeah, and so like there's nothing could ever replace that. Nothing could ever replace that, but there is something to be said for the digital file, that it can be, as you were saying, there's a loss, right? Like when he sends you the scans of the pencils or whatever, there's a loss there. When it's printed, there's a loss there. But I was marveling at this in the cover that we were looking at for issue number 5. It was, I had a great conversation with Mark. We were just kind of, I mean, with Marco, we were just nerding out over inkers and stuff like that for like about a 2-hour window there. And he was just telling me about that. There's something so cool about everything that you put down is being reproduced on the inks. But I
Mm.
mean, let's make no mistake about it. There's nothing is ever going to, you know, replace holding the Mona Lisa or looking at
Oh
the
yeah,
Sistine Chapel in person. You know, I don't care how many digital representations you can do.
right.
I mean, that's just there's just no replacing that.
I used to be I used to be against digital inks for the longest time because I never saw anything that was good, and it wasn't until I started seeing professionals that I really paid attention to that were digital inkers, where I was like, all right, this can actually be good, because you have to still know what you're doing to make it look good, otherwise it's gonna come out and just look too digital, which I've seen before with quote unquote amateur inkers or whatever. It just doesn't. They lose energy. There's something about it that doesn't look good. Uh, guys like you, guys like Jimmy Reyes, Chance Wolf, who does digital inking as well. Uh, it doesn't look digital. It's got that organic feel, even though it's a digital process. So I'm warming up more and more to digital inks. I'll probably always be a traditional penciler because I just like the feel of drawing on paper. But I'm warming up to digital inkers and their work more and more as I go and I learn about it and I see the work that can be produced. Stuff that, like the stuff that you're showing, it's amazing. Same thing. Seeing some of the stuff that Jimmy Reyes has done is, yeah. So I mean, I'm crossing over to accept more digital, more digital inking work. I guess I could say than I
I
had before.
Daniel Enriquez does a really nice job on his inks and stuff like that. With and he uses all those textures and zips and things like that we were talking about earlier. He does an amazing job. Um, I just don't know. I think that it would be great if some of the great inkers of our time, Adelso, Sandra, and all those other guys would, I would love to see what they can come up with, because it changes everything. Everything is different. And whereas, like I was saying earlier, if you used a quill and,
Mm-hmm.
you have to point the quill in a certain direction for it to work, you can't reverse course. But now you have, you're not restricted by that. You can, I mean, my way of inking is completely changed, where I just
Huh.
I was just always going in one direction. Now I still move the page digitally like I would
Right.
do normally, but now my hand moves in so many different ways, and that allows me to have more like the more randomness to the line. And um I think it's I started doing a couple of things, traditionally, and it was really cool. I did a couple of sketch covers during the convention, and it was neat because it was the first time that I've put a traditional medium, a traditional pen, brush, micron to paper.
I was just gonna ask if you,
And
yeah,
Yeah.
you used a pen, yeah.
I used um, I used some micron pens and markers, and it was so much different, and there was a lot of joy involved in it for me.
You got them,
Um,
Joe.
Yeah.
yes.
You got these brush pens that Kayla suggested. I have not got a chance to use them yet, but I'm
So
definitely going to.
I'm not an artist at all, but Ryan Wynn was hosting ink-alongs, and I was like, let me just learn more about these processes. If I'm editing
Uh-huh.
books for people, I want to learn as much about every process possible. So, I can I just want to learn everything I can about the comic industry, processes, how things are done. I want to watch it. I want to try it, even if I'm not great at it. I want to at least try it. And I actually I inked like a Black Widow piece for like an ink along. And it wasn't like the best. It was not like the best. It wasn't the worst.
You're
But I
lying. It was
guess I was
awesome.
playing with like tools.
Yeah.
I found these pens, these Bemojis, and then I became obsessed. And I just there, and you can have so much movement with them. It was just it was great. Like I was doing all these little lines, and it was just so easy to move from thick to thin, with nothing. I didn't even have to put pressure. It was just a movement, flicking my wrist.
You just
So it
gave me
just
a great idea. I think I should do ink alongs
you
on
should do
video.
ink alongs. I was going to say
Boom.
that to
See?
you.
There you
I
go.
think
Okay,
you should come here and do an ink along.
Kayla's got all the great ideas.
I think
that
so.
is an
You should
amazing
definitely
idea.
come back and do an ink along. Maybe it could be an ink along of a piece Joe sends you digitally.
I was just
Something
about
that
to
he
say
drew.
that. Yeah,
I'm down.
that
Let's do
sounds
it.
that sounds like a
100%.
great idea.
I
And
love
there's
it. Let's do it.
I took a peek to look at the chat. I was cheating, and
I am not an I'm in. Trust me, you don't want to see my artwork, but it's important, I think, if you want to be in this industry and you want to work with other people, or you're going to edit somebody's book, that you at least learn some of these techniques and processes, so that way when you're going to give advice to somebody, you at least have an answer or can provide them with the correct direction.
that's
That's
a
what it
great idea.
comes down
Yes,
to. You have to be open to learning. If I'm not open to learning, how can I do anything correctly?
Truth.
I at least got to say I tried, and even through failure, I learned something, and I come out
Yeah,
better with that. So I
that's
win in the
also,
end.
it's kind of a neurotic, but that's also been like my approach. Like I gotta be anxious to learn. I really gotta want it really
Yeah.
bad. You know what I mean? And someone wrote down on the chat about how, because they zoom in so much,
Oh, yeah. Dan Lawless.
that digital takes them so long. And I think that's a misconception, because for me, it does take a lot. It takes a long time. That digital is so much easier. But the thing is that I think in my experience, I just kind of I think about it too much, and redraw and or re-ink and redo, and you can get caught up in that. It's like when you're looking at Instagram or your Twitter, and you're like, oh wow, it's
Right.
just that was I didn't need to waste those 15 minutes, and you look up and it's been 3.5 hours.
So interesting to me
Yep.
because I would think with digital, the two perks of being digital would be number one, time. I would think that it would be a faster process. And number two, I would think it would be that the error correction that's involved. It's almost like, there's not, because it's digital, you can just go in, erase something, Whereas, like, if you're traditionally inking and you make a mistake, it's going to take a lot longer to fix, or you might just, the piece might be lost. I've heard in some cases. So
Whiteout, baby.
Oh my God, it's funny that you say that, but I have a really, oh my God, probably Brett.
Do you have a story? You got to share it.
Yeah, I have I don't know if it's a story, but it's kind of a nightmare. So maybe he remembers this. I don't know if he's listening or not, but I'm pretty sure he remembers this. So when I started working at Wildstorm, I would drive back to visit people in Simi Valley, California. Shout out to Simi Valley High School girls soccer, where I'm the goalkeeper coach. But
Nice.
So I used to go back, and I went to a friend's house to hang out, and I wanted to be a show off. I'm an image comic artist, and I'm
Right.
cool, I'm a rock star, whatever. I wanted to flex a little bit. So I go and I'm having dinner. I put the page after we finish. I put the page on the table, and it's different than your drafting table, because for a drafting table, I would just have a place where I would put my ink. I put my ink right next to the piece, and sooner stuff happens. I lost distraction. A little brother came by and spills the entire ink bottle on a double page spread from Kindred.
Oh no!
Yes,
how'd you have to explain that? Like,
oh my God, that was really, really, really difficult. I don't even remember how I did it, but I just I vividly remember that whole scenario. I have even though I didn't see it in my mind, I keep playing like how it happened. You know what I mean? Like ink just goes in slow motion and pours all over the place. But yeah, that was that's the cool part about it. But you can, like you were saying, you get caught up in that, and the undo button or the flick of the fingers undoing stuff. You get caught up in that. But in my experience, it hasn't taken me any less time, even though theoretically it should. But I do really enjoy the process. I guess I'm probably in the minority, but it's not like, for me, I think it's so fresh, and I'm a big proponent of it, because it's not like a transition from a traditional medium to the digital one. It's just I was in a hiatus for like 10-15 years or so. So in a way, I was kind of like learning something, and there was no pressure, where there was no learning curve. I was just, figuring out the tools, and I didn't have to figure out like how the rulers worked within a certain period of time. It was just something that came naturally. So there's no pressure. I don't have any stress at all relative to that experience. It was just a really nice experience for me. But I can see somebody trying to make the transition and really having to make a deadline. I can imagine how difficult that would be. Have you given a shot, penciling or inking digitally?
I've inked a few pieces digitally that I had to do when I was getting ready for the campaign. Actually, I'll pull up a piece that
you pull them up, Joe.
Yeah, let me pull up the campaign, because I have a piece on the campaign that I inked digitally, and I did it because I didn't have the time, I thought, to do it traditionally. But there was an old sketch I had that I really liked, and I didn't want to redraw it, so I just threw it into Clip Studio, and I just inked over it and kind of fixed it and updated it to my current style.
Yeah, your current inking style that you have done is phenomenal. Whatever Joe is currently doing, it's mind-blowing. It's amazing. Like
A lot of this stuff, and this was actually, I did this one earlier in the year, but a lot of my current inking I do just by looking at a lot of stuff that's going on right now. I looked at a lot of Silvestri stuff. I obviously paid attention to Bat and Weems. I paid attention to Sal, Adelso, and just kind of added stuff in. But this piece, I actually inked that entire piece digital. And it was
Nice.
colored by Dan Kemp. But yeah, this Vanessa piece was an original sketch that I really liked, but I wanted to update it for my art because I drew this original sketch like back in 2016 or something, and I really wanted to use it, so I put it into Clip Studio and then just went over it digitally and fixed some of the things I wanted to fix, and then inked the rest just digital.
On an iPad?
Yeah, on the iPad. Yep. And this I've got one of those 9x12 iPads.
Yeah,
I use.
Do you want to show what you've been doing? Like, I know Sal's here, but do you want to show what you've been doing recently? Can you something to the audience? Joe? Like the new
the
style
inking?
you found, yeah, because it's incredible. Like it is. I think you've really found your niche. Like
some of this stuff. Let me see.
I know there's stuff you can't show, but if
Yeah,
there's
some of the stuff were
could
commissions and stuff I
show.
can't show yet. I'll try to find something before. Go ahead and talk for a second. I'll see if I can find something.
Just
have
go-
you
Otherwise-
tried Procreate?
I did try Procreate. That's where I actually started first, and then I
They
liked
just have
Procreate.
terrible brushes. That's the problem.
Yeah, I would say I liked Procreate for what it was when I first started it. But as soon as I started doing stuff in Clip, I just liked the stuff that was in Clip a lot better. And I also I've got some of Jimmy Reyes's custom inked brushes that he created for Clip Studio as well. All right, let me see if I opened up this piece.
Yeah, Procreate has terrible brushes.
I tried to digitally color something, and it was a struggle for me because Ed,
You got an example of it?
I pulled it up before on that stream with Malin. That when Malin came on, that was me trying to digitally color. It was not great.
Show the piece.
It wasn't bad.
Show the piece.
I don't have it. I would have to have it like set. I don't even know if there's still a copy of it. Like you should see what it looks like now. It's absolutely gorgeous, and it's crazy because Ed basically did everything in a pencil, everything by pencil, right? And then he transferred it digitally because that's like what he would do for his tattoo process. He'll take his pencil work and then put it down digitally and then go over it, like basically inking it digitally. And then he will add his colors and whatever. So he was doing a piece like just a death curse thing for something we're going to be putting out at some point. And I was like, hey, I want to try to color it. And I tried to color it, and it was so hard for me because everything's so sensitive on the screen. And it was just really, I had a very tough time, and I was just not great at it. And I couldn't blend like the colors in correctly, even though I was trying to use like a blending brush, and it just wasn't. Art is just like, I love it. I love looking at it. I love editing people's artwork. I love everything with art, but I just do not have the hand technique. Like I don't know what it is unless it's me doing someone's hair. Like I can paint hair all day long and it will come out beautifully, but I just can't convey that stuff artistically as an artist. I cannot. It's just no matter how hard I try, but I'm still open to at least trying and then seeing, okay, now I understand why somebody does this. But for the digital coloring, that is freaking hard. All right. That is hard.
That is
hard.
So what were you using here? Is this traditional or?
Yeah, this is traditional. This is just so I can't ink with nib. I'm not talented enough, so I just ink with pens, and I use a combination of Copics and Faber-Castell, Cristal, whatever you want to call it.
Faber-Castell.
And then brush pens that I use. I just varying the sizes with this.
Zoom
Yeah,
in on
looks
that.
great.
Abs.
I want to use some of those.
Look at that, Joe.
The abs. And this was just a new technique that I was trying to that I got from just looking at some Silvestri and some Wrights and stuff. I just wanted to experience
the new Mark style with the line work and stuff like that, right?
Yep, it was just something I wanted to experiment with because I hadn't really done too much of it before. So I was like, you know what, artists, we can always learn and try new stuff. And I was like, I'm gonna start doing some of this things, some of this on some of my ink pieces,
This is amazing. When I saw this, I was like, oh my God, this is like Joe just keeps getting better and better and better and better and better. He's someone that has not peaked yet either. And he
Thank you.
I really, really want to get a hold of a brush pen. I don't know. Maybe you can just send me the brand. I'm really curious to see. I see people using them all the time, and I know, that Scott Williams is primarily inking with markers and what are those pens? The brush pens and
they're like Kuretake, but they're Bimoji, like Kuretake Bimoji.
Do they feel, Joe? Do they feel like a brush and behave like a brush?
Well, that's hard for me to answer because I've never really inked with a brush either, so I've only ever inked with brush pens. So it's something I'm getting a feel for. So I wouldn't be the best one to answer for that. But I mean, these have much finer tips. Like there's different sizes with these brushes. So you can do fine work, you can do big work.
And they have thicker ones.
The brush pens that I use with the Faber-Castell or whatever and the Copics, those are all just one size brush, and you kind of have to, if you want to do fine work, just kind of be a little bit lighter handed and heavy pressure as far as the line weights and all that kind of stuff. I'm eager to try these out because it's got so many different sizes. I can maybe build a line with a thinner brush and thicken it up. Again, I'm not an expert at brush inking whatsoever, so it's kind of a new thing that I'm experimenting with, but I'm looking forward to trying those out. I think those are cool.
If I was able to do it, you can definitely do it and do it 100 times better than what I did. And I found it like such a breeze. All I had to do literally, because I was doing the hair. I love hair. So I had a blast like doing the hair on this piece.
Hair is good.
I could take like the tip. I could just like take the tip of the brush pen and I could start light if I wanted to. And I could just flick it down and then get a heavy end. Or I could start heavy here. Like I would put the not necessarily more pressure. I would say it's just the angle I would hold it at. And then I just go swoosh. And I would just get like in one line. It was one line and the weight would distribute evenly. So and I was like, oh, if I could do it, someone that actually has artistic talent, imagine what they can do. And so there's like all different sizes and everything. I've played around with every single size, and there's a lot of
Stoles is saying that it's more like a thicker nib, the Kuroki brushes.
Pens, yeah. So it's basically it's like they're very pigmented, I would say, not necessarily about like the nib tip. They do make pens that aren't brush pens though. They do make like ones that are tipped.
Oh, do they?
Yeah, they do as well. I have all of those as well too.
I saw at the convention that even Micron has like a different type of pen now. Like it's
yeah, I bought them for Ed.
Just for me, I think the reason why I like digital so much is because I don't know if you, Joe, if you ever got to draw on any of these, or if someone has a stock of it, it'd be cool for you to experience it. But the original image boards that we had
Oh,
were
haven't
so
yet.
smooth and
Yeah,
so awesome. I used to love that stuff. And
I
I think
want to so bad.
have you heard of them? Have people
Oh,
talked to you about
absolutely,
them?
they're legendary. Yeah, the original image
Yeah.
boards are legendary for
Yeah.
artists. And Art T. Bear was supposed to send me uh, a page of his original image boards that he has left. He has yet to do it. I gotta get back on him about it. But he was going to send me just so I could draw something on it because I've been so obsessed with wanting to draw on that paper for forever now.
I'll
What
look
was
around
the
to see if
comprised of?
there's
Is it like a
because
Bristol? Like what was it? The
it
image
was a
boards.
Bristol board, and they
Image
made
Bristol
two
board?
types of it. Because
Oh.
for us they made a super smooth um artboard 11 by 17, and for Extreme Studios, because Rob likes to have texture on his paper, they
Mhm.
made a rougher. And I think all the comic book companies, I know DC, the last book I did for them, they still had they had two choices that you can pick from. But that smooth paper was so smooth, so responsive, and it just like it for
Oh,
me. I know it's ridiculous, but it felt like everything that I wanted to do would come
right.
out of the paper. Would it would just like it would just be perfect, and it was so smooth. I think I like that surface being so smooth that it like
Yeah.
it's easy to work on the iPad. The paper over at DC when they made the transition, and we started inking on DC paper, that paper bled a lot.
Huh.
And so it was,
That's
I don't know
problematic.
if it, yeah, so you'd find yourself, you get in a comfort zone and you like the tools that you like for a reason because they work. The viscosity of every ink that you buy is different. Black
Right.
Magic,
Mhm.
it's very fluid. And so that's what Bat uses. So it's very fluid, but it also gets chunky really fast. So you have to be like you can add sometimes water, and other guys use Speedball. That is well, that's an ink that I couldn't use because the viscosity. It's just to me it was more like an oil, and
Okay.
it wouldn't flow off the nib as much. But that's the reason why I like it. The new DC paper was just bled a lot. It was really difficult for me to work on. But I know that all the guys over at Extreme Studios love their rough paper.
Yeah, see, I like the
I
smooth stuff too. Like I've tried
yeah,
drawing the rough stuff before. I don't like something with too much too much bite into it. I like the nice smooth, just gliding aspect of of paper. Desolate Souls. Right now, I use Strathmore 300, but I also do use the Eon HD plate ultra smooth boards as well that I really really like because they're thick and they can handle a lot of abuse as far as if you have to do a lot of erasing, which I do all the time. So those
I
are the
think
two papers I primarily use.
I think that's what Brev uses, right?
Yep. Yep. And actually, I started using it because I saw Brett use it one day, and he was talking. He made a post on Twitter a couple years back about how he thought that the Eon boards that he was using at the time were the second
The
best
closest thing.
to the image, yeah, closest to the image boards that he had drawn on. And I was like, oh shoot, I was like, I gotta try that out. So I went out and bought them, and as soon as I started drawing on, absolutely loved them. The only reason I stopped drawing on them was when I started working with Weems. He didn't like inking on them, and since he was inking over my original pencils, I switched to the paper that he liked inking on over the Eon boards. So that was why I switched to Strathmore 300, which is what he enjoyed inking on. And I tried that out, and I was like, yeah, I like drawing on this too. It works just fine. But those Eon boards are nice. They're really nice for
Do
pencils.
they make them in comic book size, or is it something that you have to cut out and
Oh yeah, yep.
resize?
I've got a pack, somewhere over here. But yeah, I've got they come in 11 by 17, blue lined out, for borders. What I like about the Eon boards is they put a ruler on around the border of the page. There's a very light ruler, so you can measure out stuff a little bit easier and just kind of eyeball stuff. I was like, that's kind of a cool feature because I hadn't seen that on any other blue line boards out there. The Strathmore 300 you can get 11 by 17, but it just comes plain. It doesn't have a blue line on it, so I had to actually go print a blue line on it. because I enjoy drawing with the blue line, so you can see the bleed, you can see the all that kind of stuff when it comes to placing your panels and making sure there's room for the script and all that stuff. Like I enjoy drawing with the blue line. So, but yeah, I think I might switch back to permanently going with the Eon boards again.
I think Top Cow was the last holdover, probably maybe because Mark loved it so much. The last time I worked on a Top Cow book that had the old legendary paper that you're talking about, it was in, I think I was doing Magdalena.
Okay.
And halfway through that run, they stopped providing it. They just told us, we're not going to provide the paper anymore. So it was like a rude awakening from having probably the best paper that I've ever worked on to whatever paper the penciler could get a hold of. And that was a struggle because it was really difficult. The paper would bleed or wouldn't take the ink the same way. It wouldn't flow the same way that it would do in other places. I ended up having to, I think Alejandro Garza was using, he had some overstock of it and he was using that. And halfway through the Fathom run that we did, he started using another, like the DC boards, and then it was back to the bleeding everywhere. You'd have to use a lot of brush, and then if you kind of beat up the paper too much, then it would bleed even more. It was kind of difficult too.
Yeah, that would be jarring for me to switch up that much. I don't think I'd like that at all. It was interesting when I finally decided I didn't like the rougher paper, because at first there was a time I actually did like it. There was, for some odd reason, like I enjoyed it, but once I made the switch to like the smooth, everything just kind of changed for me. Like the flow was so much better. Like the feel of the pencil on the paper, the movement of my hand, all that was just so much better. Guys, we've been going for almost 3 hours. I'm gonna wait for Kayla to get back here. I feel like I'm about to lose my voice.
I'm back. Sorry,
the
mini cat was in here and she got all the way on top of like the big stack of comic books I have up here, and I I was trying to stand up to get her, and then I was like, hold on, let me take myself off a cam. And yes, so I'm back. I'm sorry.
We just got a cat ourselves finally. My kids just begged and pleaded, and I finally give in, and I love the cat.
The cats are great.
Amazing. Yeah.
I love my cats. Besides that, all of them, well, 2 of them want to be up high all the time. And this is not the room to be up high. So I have a little cat with short legs. Yeah. She can't get down once she gets up. So it's like
the first day we got the cat, we thought he lost it, that we thought that it went out the door. We searched for him for like 4 hours, made posters, put the posters out,
where's your
got
cat
in a
hiding?
Community group thing, and then the cat comes out of hiding when I least expected it. Isn't that the cat behind you, Dad? Yep, that's it.
Yep, the cat's always like my cat. I have a cat that hides in the bookshelf back there, like this bookshelf. She gets in. She has like a little nook in there. I don't know how she does it. She doesn't knock anything out. So yeah, I mean, I still have to get this room organized. I started and then I got so busy. Now I get everyone's Christmas gifts in here in containers and stuff I was wrapping. And I'll get it done next year when I have time off. I have like a week off
next
beginning
Christmas.
Of the year. Well, no, I have to get it done because I'm going to be moving, I think, shortly. So that's why I'm keeping like all my collectibles in boxes. So I don't want to have to take out my Jean Grey statues and then like, I don't know, because I'm not going to keep the boxes probably for most of it. So.
Well, I was trying to find the piece that Brett did for the auction.
The auction, which is
please find
amazing.
It. I must see it.
Oh, it's such a beautiful.
All right, give me a second. I gotta search for it.
Whoever bids on that piece and gets it for the auction, the money's going to a great cause. It's going to help pay for some expenses for Sean's mother that passed, and help his family out with everything that's going on in the hospital bills that they were left with, and just everything. So whoever bids on it, their money is going to a good place, but they're going to be happy with that piece, whoever they are, either if they're going to bid on it as a gift to give to somebody or for themselves, they're going to be extremely happy with that piece. That piece is amazing. It is absolutely beautiful. So
I can't wait. Do you guys have the physical board already?
I'm not
No, I
sure.
think what we're gonna do is when whoever wins, I'm going to let Brett know, and I think he's just gonna send it to that person.
By the way, Brett, when he ships stuff,
Yeah.
he's the most amazing shipper of all time. I mean, he packs that up in wood and, under 5 different
Oh,
companies.
nice.
Nothing's going to happen to that piece.
Oh, so he ships like I do.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So here is the piece that he drew specifically and donated to this auction to help out Sean and the Ahrendt family. Do this awesome, amazing spawn.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So when I reached out to him, he immediately hit me back and said, "Yep, when do you need it by? I'll get something done." And I let him know, and he absolutely did it, knocked it out of the park. And when I saw this, I was like, "Yeah, I'm going to bid on this myself," because the hosts of the shows can bid on the artwork that is going up for sale. And I was just like, "Yeah, I saw this. I was like, I don't have an original of Brett yet, so I'm going to try to get this piece. This is what I'm looking at, trying to get."
That's amazing. He probably did that in like 10 minutes.
He probably did.
Like
So
what he
fast.
was.
He absolutely probably did. I mean, he's just so fast, but just look, the detail in this, just love it.
The devil is in the
Absolutely love it.
detail. That's
That
Yeah,
is
so this
so
oh,
amazing.
it's just amazing. It's heavenly.
Yeah, so this is going to be available December 10th when we do the Epic Art Auction, is what I'm calling it. It's going to be streaming over 3 different streams. My stream at 7 o'clock, and then Bancroft's stream at 9, and then Lord Crackhead Jeremy's stream at 10 o'clock to whenever he wants to, whatever he wants to go through. And we've got pieces by Brett Booth, Kenneth Roquefort, Billy Tucci, Dan Frega. Rini has a piece that's available. I'm going to be selling the or putting up for bid the original art to that piece I showed you. Is going to be going up for bid for anybody that wants it. We've got a ton of people putting in original art, putting in bundles for this auction. And like Kayla said earlier, all the proceeds are going to Sean Ahrendt and the Ahrendt family to help pay for expenses. Obviously, unfortunately, they lost their mother about a month ago, and they also lost their father 2 years ago. So this is trying to ease some of the financial burden that comes along with losing a parent and having to take over the financial responsibilities for it. So everybody definitely come tune in on December 10th. I actually put together a trailer. This isn't officially done, but you'd like to see the work in progress of the trailer. This would be a sneak peek for everybody out there.
I think
Absolutely.
you should show it.
Okay, here we go. I'm still working on this, so here's the sneak peek of the trailer.
On December 10th comes the Epic Art Auction. Comes your chance to bid on pieces from legendary artists Kenneth Roquefort, Billy Tucci, Dan Frega, Brett Booth, as well as Alexa Lowe, Joe M. Sontag, Chris Graves, Jason Baskin, Jonathan Wayshed, Rich Ayala, Shelby Robertson, Dan Dull, Jonathan Jenny, and so many more I don't even have the time to list. 3 streams, 1 night. December 10th, the Epic Art Auction. Don't miss out. Mark your calendar and get there early. Bid twice, bid often. Starts at 7 o'clock on YouTube with Joe M. Sontag, 9 o'clock with Michael Bancroft, and finishing up at 10 o'clock with Jeremy Lord Crackhead. Do not miss your chance to be a part of history. The Epic Art Auction.
Yeah.
Can you share,
I think
can you
that's
share
an epic
Marat's,
trailer, Joe.
can you share
Thanks.
Marat's piece?
Yeah, let me see if I can find it. So Marat's
He's
piece.
a good guy. I love to talk to him.
Yeah,
Got a
Marat's
chance
piece
to talk to him, to
is
nerd out with him,
from.
reminisce for about 2 hours or so during
Oh,
the night.
nice. I got to meet Marat one time in Chicago at Wizard World back in 2007. He was a really cool dude. His piece is from a Coney Waves book that he did for Mark Polton back in the day. I'm losing my voice. I'm trying to hold on here a second. No, with some water. Ugh, going down fast. All right, hold on a second.
You're going down fast.
Yeah, I'm losing. Yeah, I feel like my voice is about donezo. All right, hold on a second. Let me see. There's so much art I guess sift through for this auction. Yeah, the amount of people that put forward pieces is absolutely insane. We have too many pieces. I don't even think we're going to get to everything on the actual auction night, and we're doing 3 different streams. So we might have to do a second version or second stream some other time down the road to get the other pieces. All right, Marat's piece. It's kind of hard to see because the scan is really light, but I will bring it up here in a second. All right, so this is Marat's piece for the. Where are we at here? Can I zoom in? Yeah.
Awesome.
So I can't remember what year this was done, but yeah, this was an original art for Mark Polton's Coney Waves book. And they put this up into the auction. I thought that was really cool. Yeah. So that's going to be available as well. Yeah, so many great pieces by so many great artists in this auction. What really makes me excited to see is everybody that's come along in this community, coming around in support of Sean. I know he's extremely moved by everything that he's feeling from you guys. His entire family is. When he broke the news to his family that we're doing this, it was very moving for everybody. So he also wants me to say thank you every time I get a chance to, just to let you guys know, the chat know, the people involved know how much him and his family really appreciate this. And again, this Saturday at 10 o'clock or 7 o'clock, starting right here on this channel, we're gonna be kicking off with the Epic Art Auction, and we're going on to Bancroft's channel after that, and we're gonna go on Lord Crackhead's channel after that, and it's just gonna be this big epic thing. Guests, multiple guest appearance by a bunch of different people are going to jump on and just have a good time and sell some art, and the proceeds are going to a very good cause. So I hope you all tune in because it's going to be fun. It's going to be really fun. With that being said, I think my voice is about shot. So thank you so much, Sal, for coming on. This was a pleasure as always. We'll definitely have to have you on again. I love Kayla's idea of the ink along. We'll have to try to set that up. If it's in your schedule, just let me know.
Of course. Thank you for having me. I had a blast. Thank you for making it so easy and smooth for me. I really appreciate it, guys.
Oh, absolutely. You're welcome here anytime.
Yes, it's always fun to talk to you and learn or hear about your experiences doing things. So it's always fun. So I feel inspired.
Thanks again.
Absolutely. All right, guys, we will talk to you all later. Chat, have a good one. Take care of each other. And as always, picture me naked. Talk to you later. Peace.